with Diesel and Cole Bryson.
On the Fan Upstate.
Well, it's happened, Tolos. Duke has capitulated. Darian Mensah is free to head wherever he wants to go, a.k.a. Miami, because we all know that that's where he is headed. The question to start the show, and I need you, Tolos, to be involved, 844-326-3663, cowardice or common sense for Duke to strike a deal with Darian Mensah. It's Wire to Wire. He's Cole Bryson. My name is Diesel. Big show lined up for you today. Coming up in the very next segment, a wild story. Olympic snowboarder Ryan Wedding busted for being a part of an international drug smuggling ring that includes multiple murders. We're going to get into a big change coming to college football at 3:45. The latest on the NFL coaching carousel. Rocco Miller from Bracketeer.org going to join the show at 4:22. But right out of the gate, Cole, it seemed like they had him right where they wanted him. And this seemed like a watershed moment for college athletics to maybe turn the tide back in the right direction. And Duke let Darian Mensah wiggle out of this, and he's headed to be a Cane.
Well, you know what? I think it is a big moment for college athletics in the sense of a contract now means nothing. Because if you go back and you look at what happened, let's see. In December of 2025, right, he publicly announced he was returning. Diesel before that, the original NIL contract, it was, I believe, 2-year contract, $4 million per year is what it was reported, which is an $8 million contract, and an education from Duke, which is pretty good, by the way, right?
It's funny you think these guys are going to class.
Right, that's true, too. The contract gave Duke exclusive NIL rights. So I think it is a very big moment for college football, but not in a good way, because what happened today was a school that had exclusive NIL rights to a player. The player was under contract with said school. Filed a lawsuit, a couple of weeks ago, after Darian Mensah tried to get out of the contract, and now all of a sudden we have seen, as of the 27th day of January 2026, Diesel, a contract in this new modern age of college athletics is basically meaningless.
Look, I know that this is a silly way to put this here, but I looked at the national rankings for law schools in America. Duke is ranked as the number 6 law school in the country. Miami Law is ranked as the number 92 law school in the country.
Does Darian Mensah know that they're a law school?
I doubt it. This would be like number 6 Georgia losing to number 92 Jacksonville State.
Yeah.
Duke lost in the Darian Mensah case. Again, I'm not a legal expert. I haven't spoken to legal experts on this, but from what I understood the contract to say, you just went through it. You did a great job going through that. They had him. Like, the contract was there. It was in black and white. The words exclusive rights. And on the last day before the transfer portal closed, Darian Mensah enters the transfer portal, and he wants out. And Duke says, no, we're not going to let you out of the contract. What are you talking about? You signed a contract. A contract is a contract, right? Well, now they're saying, no, it's okay. It's okay. You can go. You can just go. Now, we don't yet know the terms of what the settlement is. We have statements from both Duke, and we have a statement from Darian Mensah's crew, his side of things, but we don't know what the terms are going to be. So this, as we said, a watershed moment for college football, headed down the road of buyouts. What will buyouts look like? This seems like the first moment that's going to set precedent, and precedent is very important to people like Madcraft. This is the precedent that will set, Cole. What happens when there are tampering cases? Guys are enrolled. They are on campus. They are on contract. And then they head out the door in the transfer portal. This will be the one that sets up all the future cases.
Well, I think the biggest issue in this entire matter, Diesel, is that these contracts that these players are signing are not the same as employment contracts.
Yeah, what are they writing these things in crayon?
So my issue is they're not the same. Like, what I want to know from a legal standpoint, I want to go back to whoever it is that the lawyers or whoever it may be. I want to know what the contracts actually do, because the contracts that these players are signing, Diesel, again, it's very important to know it is not an employment agreement. So you and I, when we go work for a company, we sign an employment agreement, aka a contract. In most of the world, in 99% of the world, a contract is an employment agreement. But for whatever reason in NIL, they're not. And I think that's a huge issue with all of this, that these contracts that are being signed, these NIL contracts, are not tied to any kind of agreement or employment agreement. So we've had this conversation many times about making them employees. What are the contracts actually for is what I want to know. What good is the contract? I
think it just lays out terms in principle, right? Like, have you ever heard of an agreement on principle? They talk about that a lot in the NFL and major sporting leagues when, the sides have come together. They've agreed upon the money. The terms are basically there in bullet point form, but nobody has gone in and written out the contract in legal terms, and it's not been vetted and it's not been signed by all parties. They agree in principle.
Oh,
and that feels like, as far as this thing goes, it's basically Duke saying, hey, this is what we're going to pay you. And we want you to stay here for this amount of time.
Oh,
now there's it would appear that there's no legal enforceability of these contracts. So they're not legally binding in any way. So it just begs the question, why do the universities have to pay? Why are universities paying NIL valuation to players? Other than the fact that it's going to be a bad look for them and they're going to lose in the court of public opinion. Who cares? The public are idiots. Most of the public are idiots. And they say they want rules and regulations back into college football. But every time something like this happens, they celebrate it and say, oh, it's great. The player gets to go do what he wants.
Well, Diesel, there is breaking news that's not so shocking, but it just came across my phone, and I'm glad we planned this segment for this time at 3:07 on a Tuesday afternoon.
Oh?
Breaking news, Duke transfer quarterback Darian Mensah has arrived on campus at, you guess? You fill in the blank?
Miami.
That's right. There is a picture of him on campus reported by On3 Sports. For those that are watching on the stream, you can see.
Is he wearing his Duke gear?
He is on campus at Miami at this very moment. So literally the same day, we're talking about it to lead the show, Darian Mensah has arrived on campus.
You think he drove, or did they fly him down in a private jet?
I would probably say he flew very, very quickly. What's crazy is, though, we always looked at Duke football before NIL and before the portal as, it's cute, right?
It's a joke.
They have a football program. That's really cute, But what's crazy about this entire conversation that we're not even talking about, Diesel, is Duke was offering the kid $8 million to play football.
Remember when we thought a room and board, tuition, a scholarship, people decided that a scholarship was valueless. Now an $8 million contract is valueless.
So I cannot wait to hear what the details are this new Miami contract, because, just to say that out loud, think about that, to say those words out loud, education, and I guess you put education in air quotes now,
right?
From Duke, which is prestige, right?
Right.
Prestige education. Plus, here's $8 million to go along with it. That's not good enough. I cannot wait to see what Miami offers on this.
So 7 days ago, Duke sued him for violating the terms of his NIL agreement by, quote, disclosing its monetary terms, seeking to license his NIL in football to another collegiate institution, ding, 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 that's the one, seeking his enrollment at another institution, ding, 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 there's two, initiating contact with admissions or athletic staff from another institution, there's number three, failing to notify Duke University if he is contacted by another institution, that's probably number four, or acting in a way that has now harmed his image or the image of Duke University by ignoring the terms and conditions of his contract. That is 5. He violated 5 out of the 6 tenets of his NIL deal.
But that goes back to what I said. What's the contract even? What is the contract? What is it? Seriously, if he violates all that.
You should go and watch the movie Airheads, Cole. It's a radio movie, by the way. Brandon Fraser, Steve Buscemi, Adam Sandler, 3 idiot rockers that break into a radio station to get their song played on the air. Well, they get a contract they don't like, and the guy literally wipes his rear end with his record contract after signing it. That is what Darian Mensah did with this, and Duke, they just rolled over. Duke flat out capitulated. They were cowards in this situation. You had them, man. You had them on a $4 million contract to come back and play football for you. You had him. He broke the contract. You knew he broke the contract. Everybody knows he broke the contract. And then you just said, nah, it's okay. You can leave. Here was Duke's statement that was issued earlier today. Tell me if you think this is real or not, or accurate. We are committed to fulfilling all promises and obligation Duke makes to our student athletes when we enter into contractual agreements with them. And we expect the same in return. Enforcing those agreements is a necessary element of ensuring predictability and structure for our athletic programs. It is nonetheless a difficult choice to pursue legal action against a student and a teammate. For this reason, we sought to resolve the matter fairly and quickly.
They're backpedaling is what they're doing, right?
The middle part of that statement says, we have zero tolerance for people who break our contracts. And then the last part of that says, yeah, but if you break our contract, like, we're not going to do anything to you because it's a bad look.
Well, it's definitely, you said capitulated. They definitely waved the white flag, right? They just basically gave up. And I think it's really interesting to hear them say that, because I thought if they could, Diesel, if they could take it and win it, I think it would be a big moment in college athletics and in college football. That didn't happen. On the stream, Matt Byer said he is getting $10 million from Miami. So if that's true, that is $2 more million. Well, that's
is it 10 for 2 years or 10 for 1 year?
That's a great question. That's what I was going to ask Matt. If you know, let us know. I don't know the details of that. 10 for 1 year is even just crazy to say out loud, because at Duke it was 4 for 2 years, which totaled $8 million. So I don't know what the details are. Also on the stream, Dewey, Shane Barrett, Dan B. A lot of Tolos watching the show on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Dewey says NIL ruined college sports. Tolo says Dan B. Let's see here. Shane Barrett says, you know who signed a contract? Charles Bediako. You know who's ineligible to play college basketball? Charles Bediako.
Well, he's playing on a 10-day injunction, and that has a big old asterisk next to it. We don't know if he'll be able to continue doing that, but there's a big red mark.
There is.
That.
Dan B says, I don't support breaking the contracts. Also, don't support the what Ole Miss did. Just shows the dumpster fire that is college football now. Fully involved, the 3-story apartment next to it. Good to see JB. Figueroa Tom, what'd he say? Schools don't need to complain when a player opts out and bolts. They never set up a structure to NIL. And again, Tom, you're right. There was never a structure. I don't know that that's the school's fault. I think.
What do you mean? What do you mean they never set up a structure?
I think what he means is there was never any kind of guidelines when NIL was implemented. But again, that's not on the school. Right. That's
on the NCAA.
Correct.
That's on the NCAA for stepping out of the way and saying, hey, y'all do what you want to do. It's fine.
JB real quick says, it was funny what Todd Golden said about the player going back to Bama. We're going to talk about that later. I have audio from Todd Golden coming up at 6:00. Matt says, Diesel, 10 for 1.
Oh, my God.
Think about that.
10 for 1.
10 for 1.
Does anybody know, Matt, you may know off the top of your head, what was Carson Beck getting for this year to play at Miami? You pay all that kind of money and you come in second place. That's tough.
10 for 1?
To a school with a bunch of 3 stars.
That is unbelievable. Sure. Darian Mensah, I saw him play last year in person. Clemson Duke. Good quarterback. But to think that kid's getting paid $10 million for 1 year of college football.
Lest we not forget, there's only one trophy, right? There's only one championship trophy. So you've got dozens of schools across the country putting out enormous contracts like this, and they're not going to win a damn thing for it. Somebody will.
That's crazy.
Somebody will. Maybe one of these days it's going to be the school that puts the most money out. Last year it was Ohio State. One of these days it's going to be Miami. One of these days it's going to be Texas A&M or Texas, the schools that are putting out the tremendous amounts of money. But remember, Texas didn't even make the dang tournament this year. So A&M made it, and they got beat in the first round, and they looked ugly doing it. So the question is, Cole, from Duke's perspective, was this the right move? Was this the right move to capitulate, or was it smart to choose not to be the school that's going to sue its student athletes?
it's easy to say. It's easy to say that you always want to win and never let the student athlete win, right? That's the easy thing to say because we want precedent set. Going back to what you said earlier in the show, we want to be able to say, hey, look, kind of like Josh Heupel did with Nico, right? Like we want somebody to set precedent and stand up for what's right. I would say this on the part of Duke, and it kind of goes back in a weird way. It kind of like is similar to the reaction that you and I had when the Dallas Cowboys traded Micah Parsons, Diesel. Right now, today, it may seem like Darian Mensah won, but let's see. Let's see how it plays out. All I'm saying is Duke may be the winner in this long term, even though there wasn't a precedent set, even though there wasn't a win for college football today. I don't know. Maybe Duke comes out the winner in this long term.
So, again, we don't know what the terms are on this. We don't know if Darian Mensah's $8 million deal over the course of 2 years, if he's going to have to pay any of that back. If it's essentially you just forfeit anything that was left on your contract, which to me it would be the ultimate win for Darian Mensah. Hey, we paid you $4 million to come here and play for a year, and we're just going to let you go scot-free. Like there's no recourse, there's no penalty for this whatsoever. Is he going to have to pay back half of what he already made?
Probably not.
Is he going to have to pay $2 million back to Duke? If that's the case, is Miami upping their contract offer to cover his buyout for him? Or is he going to have to pay for that out of his $10 million contract? Which, I mean, hey, that's a problem I would love to have. Pay me $10 million and I have to give $2 million of it right back to my previous employer. I'm still left with $8 million. I'm still feeling pretty good about myself, but I still hate the fact that I had to give away 20% of my money to the school that I'm not even playing for anymore.
But at the same time, from a business perspective, like, and I'm thinking about this like in NFL terms with the salary cap. I know it's a little bit different in college football, but Duke doesn't have to spend that money now. So, like, I know that we wanted a win for Duke, but Duke now is able to say, hey, we now have that money for other athletes. And I know, look, the reality of it, you got to have a quarterback. Darian Mensah is a great player.
They don't have a quarterback now.
And that's I get that. That's a huge problem.
Or they got to go tamper off somebody else's roster. So here we go doing this all over again.
Tampering doesn't happen in college football, so you don't have to worry about that.
I'm surprised that Jim Phillips hasn't stepped in and said, whoa, we're not going to let this kind of, school-on-school violence, theft happen inside of our conference. We're not going to let you do this to a conference foe or a conference member. Think about it. There are trades in the NBA that Adam Silver has to approve. There are trades in Major League Baseball that Rob Manfred has to approve. Like how is there no structure that a conference commissioner has to approve a situation like this?
Nothing. There's not that structure. What structure? I mean, there is none. So I don't know. If they had a quarterback on the roster that was competent that we don't know about, maybe I feel, hey, we're good. Matt just said they signed the quarterback. And again, that's the thing, Matt. They might have signed the quarterback. Who is he? Is he good? Maybe he's good. Maybe he's good enough. He's not Darian Mensah. I think that what makes it, I guess, a tough pill to swallow is you did feel like with Darian Mensah, you as a Duke program, Diesel, could almost elevate your program to a place it's never been, right? You could go to a spot you'd never been before. And with college football being at 12 now and maybe one day in the near future expanding again, you felt like Darian Mensah was the guy who could take you to a college football playoff. And the ACC is not great. You've got a navigable path. Heck, we saw what happened to the ACC last year with the two teams that played, and those two teams weren't in the play. So it's a wild, wild west in the ACC. So I think from that standpoint, yes, it is a gut punch because you felt like, man, maybe this guy with this portal class that we got in, maybe we could make the college football playoff in 2026.
It's going to be fascinating to see these terms when they come out. I'm so damn disappointed in Duke University right now. Not that I have always had much love for the university there in Durham, but good God, you guys are a law school. You're one of the best law schools in the country. You had them signed, sealed, delivered on a contract, and you can't enforce your own contracts. Just simply pathetic from Duke.
Matt says Walker Agnett's the guy they signed, and he says he's average at best. He's out of San Jose, so he's a transfer guy, and he looks like he's going to be leading the quarterback room. By the way, you asked about this earlier, Diesel. Carson Beck had a initial NIL salary from NIL based at $4 million, with some figures reaching up to $6 million, including performance incentives. His NIL valuation was 3.1 to 4.3. So no, he's not going to be. Now, Cam Ward only made 1.6. Only 1.6.
Well, Cam came from Washington State. I mean, obviously, it makes sense then that Carson Beck's valuation is way higher than that because he came from Georgia, where he was good at Georgia, very good at Georgia. And then all of a sudden, they jump from 4 to 10.
But think about that.
Mensah?
Cam Ward's probably a better quarterback now than Darian Mensah. The guy was making 1.5, 1.6.
The escalation is so fast, so rapid. It's hard.
What do you think it's going to be in 10 years?
God.
5 years?
I think these guys are going to be making $40 million a year.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
$40 million. I'm talking like the cream of the crop, got a couple of years under their belt, rising seniors, the most expensive quarterbacks. They're going to be making probably 40.
On the Joy Law Firm text line, Hurricane Jeff says, these are my feelings on the subject. First of all, I'm happy that Miami was able to land a quality quarterback. It certainly will help their chances to get back to the CFP. Having said that, I'm not real particular about the way he handled or the way it was handled by the athlete and the school, namely Duke. The NCAA apparently has no governing powers in such a thing, or if they did, they would have to put a stop to it, and Miami would have to settle for one of the quarterbacks currently on the roster. Personally, I think that they could probably use one of those quarterbacks, especially with all the running backs returning, and still be a playoff team. Good text, Jeff. Appreciate that. As wild as this story is, how about the story we haven't touched on in the very next segment, Diesel, that was huge news toward the end of last week? We hadn't had a chance to touch on it, but maybe you put this on the rundown. Maybe we could make a movie out of this, because it is a wild story how an Olympic snowboarder found himself in a nice set of bracelets, and will probably be spending the rest of his life in prison. We'll touch on it. If you haven't heard about it, we'll tell you all about it and get your thoughts on it next.
face.
More. This is what a united front looks like. And just to tell you how bad of a guy Ryan Wedding is, he went from an Olympic snowboarder to the largest narco trafficker in modern times. He is a modern day El Chapo. He is a modern day Pablo Escobar. And he thought he could evade justice. But these brave men and women put together a prosecution package, put together an investigative package, put together an operation strategy. And here we are today, bringing him to justice for trafficking hundreds of kilos of cocaine and also for the murder of innocent civilians. This individual and his organization in the Sinaloa cartel poured narcotics into the streets of North America and killed too many of our youth and corrupted too many of our citizens. And that ends today.
What a wild story. Diesel, I don't know if in my time covering sports, I've heard of a story like this. This broke toward the end of last week. And we had a really short show on Friday, so we didn't get a chance to dive into it. But Ryan Wedding, a former Canadian Olympic snowboarder who competed for Team Canada in the 2022 Winter Olympics here in the USA in Salt Lake City. Very good at what he did. He is in some big trouble now, though. What he's accused of, if you hadn't heard about this, and this is the first time, we'll try to break it down and give you the details, but this former Olympic snowboarder, Diesel, is now facing multiple charges federally, conspiracy to distribute and export cocaine, and operating and continuing criminal enterprise, drug trafficking, murder in connection with continuing criminal enterprise and drug crimes, and attempt to commit murder. You put it on the rundown, and I think this is perfect. This could be and will be and should be a movie in the near future.
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to end up a comedy, because this kind of feels like a comedy from the mid-2000s, kind of like Out Cold meets 21 Jump Street, or if this is going to end up being like one of those crazy fast car, shoot 'em up stories like that. It could go either
both.
way.
Go both.
I mean,
mix.
This seems like you ever see the movie We're the Millers?
Yeah.
Well, I know you know that one scene in We're the Millers.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about.
But remember, he's just a small time little pot dealer in Denver, Colorado.
That's what
and
he
his
thought,
high
right?
school buddy is a huge drug trafficker.
Pablo Escobar.
Yo soy Pablo Chacon.
Pablo Chacon. It does feel like that. It does. And I think it could be turned into a movie. It's wild to read about it. So I did not know this, Diesel, but in March of 2025 last year, he was placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list. And you know what's weird? You and I were doing this show then. I didn't really hear about it. I don't remember. Do you remember hearing that there was an Olympic snowboarder that was
not at all
top 10, most wanted fugitive because of the severity of these alleged crimes, right? At one point, Diesel, the U.S. government offered up to $15 million for information leading to an arrest, a very, very high reward. So what happened? In Mexico City, January 22nd and 23rd, which was last Thursday and Friday, Wedding was apprehended in Mexico City, where he had allegedly been hiding for more than a decade. So now go back. He competed in the Olympics in 2002. It's 2026. So we're talking about a long time of him doing what he had been doing. Mm-hmm. And he was caught in Mexico City. Authorities said that he may have been living under the protection of the Sinaloa cartel in Mexico. And I don't know if it was cooperative or not of how the arrest happened, but the fact that this all of a sudden just randomly broke, and it's not a huge tie to the USA, but the guy did compete in the Olympics, even though he's Canadian, in the United States, right? I mean, to our country, or they're not one of us.
Even though he's
Canadian. Not one of us. They're Canadian. They're not one of us, right? They wish they were. Even though that is. I just don't know if I've ever heard of a story like this or not.
No, I can't think of a famous athlete that got, but we unfortunately have been talking too much about these illegal gambling rings that yes are bad. They're very bad. They're defrauding people of their money. That you got point shaving, used to enrich certain groups of people because they have the information that so and so is gonna perform below their averages. But come on, man. This is way above and beyond. This would be like finding out that Tom Brady is involved in some kind of international cybercrime ring and he's in the FBI's top 10.
Yeah. Now, Wedding, shockingly, Diesel has pleaded not guilty. Did you hear about the murder, though? I don't know if you've heard this. Wedding allegedly placed a bounty, a reportedly $5 million bounty on a federal witness's head to prevent the prosecution that the witness was later murdered in Colombia. So, I mean, you joked about this being a movie.
Wow.
This is literally what we watch on crime shows. I love crime shows. I love TV crime. I love it. Blue Bloods, NCIS, you name it. I'm all in. This feels like, when I read about this, it felt like I was watching a crime show. Also, allegations tied to multiple killings in retaliation for stolen shipments and drug disputes, including in Canada. So I don't know how you go from an Olympic snowboarder where he met the guy or met the guys. Have you brought up the movie We're the Millers. Have you seen the movie The Mule?
Yeah. Great movie.
So the grandpa is just hanging out at his his granddaughter's wedding shower. You remember that scene? That's how the whole thing started. Remember, he met the guy and he pulled up in the junky old jankety truck, right, with all this stuff in the back because his house had been foreclosed on.
Yeah.
He pulled up.
Yes.
And the guy saw him and was like, oh, here's an opportunity to make some money. He approached the mule and said, hey, how about running some drugs for me? He got the money and then bam, it exploded. I just am so curious and fascinated because I love these kind of crimes, like crime shows and movies. Where did it start for Wedding? That's what I want to know. When this guy is winning Olympic medals, where does the connection happen for him to all of a sudden say, you know what? I want to be a kingpin.
Yeah, I don't think you go from like, hey, I'm a broke snowboarder to international drug kingpin because you just got swept up in a series of,
I'm saying, man,
goof 'em ups, and all of a sudden here you are in this, like, you chose to become, to want to live this crazy life of crime. Like, I'm looking up and down, Cole, the list of, I found a list of American athletes who have been involved in some really, really bad crimes and criminal situations. I'm finding like Richard Alston. You may know some of these names better than I do. He got 15 years for conspiracy to distribute.
Okay.
There was Plaxico Burress who got 2 years for just trying to possess a weapon. That's way, way, way different from this. Billy Cannon, a football player that got 5 years for counterfeiting. Ray Caruth got 18 years for conspiracy to commit murder. A whole bunch of Maurice Claret is on this list. Irving Fryer is on this list. Hollywood Henderson is on this list, but none of them come close. It's like all of these things combined go to this Canadian guy. Like we expect Canadians to be nice.
Now,
nice.
You know what's interesting? The slippery slope that we talk about, just in like that you raise your kids, and tell your kids and tell your family and tell the young folks of like, hey, don't do drugs. The slippery slope that it can become. Like the reality and what's sad about this situation, we don't know those details, but the reality is it can start with something just as small as doing drugs, right? And then you meet the guy who's dealing the drugs, and then all of a sudden you're meeting his boss, and then you're meeting his boss, and then you never know. Next thing you know, 2026, you're one of the biggest stories in sports. Diesel, in the late 2000s, he was arrested and convicted in the U.S. for conspiracy to distribute cocaine. It was related to a 2008 incident not many years after he competed in the Olympics. He did serve a federal prison sentence, being released around 2011. So after release, he allegedly said, you know what, getting right back in it, and built a larger criminal syndicate and continued to build this thing. And the cartel connections, I mean, it's just, it's a sad story, but it's hard to believe.
An unbelievable story. Tolos, if you found out that Cole Bryson had been arrested, what would you guess that his crime was?
It is not going to be anything about the drugs, the hard drugs, because like I joke about it, but I'm serious, man. Like you can't, I mean, it's a slippery slope, and it's not just with drugs. It like anything in life.
This was a power move.
It was.
I don't think any of this has anything to do with this athlete wanting or being addicted to drugs. He might have, right? We don't know that. But this is all about power, right? This is about influence and power and lust for more. This is Breaking Bad. This is the movie. This is the show Breaking Bad, just played out by an athlete instead of a school teacher.
And again, I think it serves a good lesson. There's so many athletes, Diesel, who are coming up and playing sports and nowadays making all this money and having all this power. And we're entering this new territory of these athletes having the world in their hands, right, from a monetary standpoint, and it's scary. But I think it does serve a good lesson for these younger athletes. And I talk about, drugs or whatever it is being a slippery slope. Anything that is not good can be a slippery slope, right? And if you get down that wrong path, whatever it is, you just think, oh, it's this little small thing here, this small addiction there, this small little thing that I'm partaking in. You never know. I mean, we talk about it all the time with sports gambling, right? And the number of lives that have been ruined over sports gambling. We love talking about the over-unders and the spreads and all this and stuff, but it's the same thing with alcohol or whatever it is or anything. You start small and you had that first drink of alcohol and you never thought, oh, I'm going to be an alcoholic and have it. You never thought it. But this guy, you think when he was young, his parents and this guy thought growing up to be Diesel, you know how many people are an Olympic snowboarder, to be at the top of the game, top of the world, and just this fall from grace, if you will. It's a terrible thing to see.
Hurricane Jeff says, when it comes to athletes who are criminals, although he doesn't fit the entire scope of the current subject, Aaron Hernandez comes to mind. Yeah, I mean, he was involved in some really, really shady stuff as well. Corn Chip says, hunting or fishing without his license or out of season, straight to jail, lock him up, and throw away the key. That's
Corn
what people
Chip.
think Cole would be busted.
Let me tell you something. That's a pretty good one. That's a pretty good guess there, Corn Chip.
I like it.
Not to say that I've done it before, but if you had a guess, that's a pretty good guess.
It's just expired by 6 years, officer. I promise you.
Usually,
I'll run and get it.
Usually, if you set yourself up right, you can see them coming from a long way, and you can get on your phone fast enough to purchase the license online. Just say it.
There you go.
Just say
Hopefully
it. Not that I've done that before.
Out in those woods, you know what I mean? When we come back, Cole, the good news just keeps on coming. Another big-time change coming to college football. The question is, are we going to like the way this looks? That's next.
Upstate.
RJ says if Cole was arrested, I would guess it would be for leadfoot or saying, how about them Cowboys too much at a restaurant?
I can see that.
But I don't know if you can get arrested for the second one.
Well, the problem is there's
thrown out. Yeah, arrested, no.
There's not too many times to say it these days,
Cole, another big change is coming to college football, and this time we're actually going to have to see it on the field. You know how you like your school's uniform to look traditional, the way that it's always looked, unless you're an Oregon fan, in which case you like the way that it changes every 5 minutes. Well, Ross Dellinger reported this a few days ago. We hadn't had a chance to talk about it yet. The Division I cabinet, which I never knew there was a cabinet for Division I, approved last Friday a proposal that will allow Division I sports programs to start placing commercial logos or patches on their uniforms, their equipment, or any apparel for any non-NCAA championship competition. Get ready for All-State ads on your jerseys or Burger King on the shoulder pads. It's coming.
What you're telling me is another reason for the college football traditionalist to be upset. The Clemson case, the orange helmets, orange jersey, white breeches, those that have always loved the tradition of running down the hill in the paw.
Instead of that tiger paw on the shoulder, you're going to see a Home Depot logo.
This is unbelievable. I mean, I don't know if I love it or hate it or am somewhere in between. I'll say this initial reaction, I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, I know you have logos now on fields and, even they're even putting logos on the field without them being on the field on TV. You notice that?
Right. You ever watch
Green
hockey?
Screen?
Yeah. Well, what you see on TV on the side of the walls, that's not what you see when you're in stadium. So they get to sell that positioning twice.
Two different places.
Which is crazy.
In the South Carolina Stadium now with the Blanchard machinery on the field, right? Which I think, by the way, logos on fields looks horrible.
It looks bad.
It looks so bad. I get it.
You got to get really good, though, at ignoring advertising.
You do, but it doesn't look good. I mean, my whole thing is, and maybe, like a company like Blanchard has so much money, it doesn't matter. But do you really believe that somebody's going to use Blanchard because it's on their field? I mean, brand awareness, I get, but I mean, you think
consumers are going to vote with their wallets?
A drunk Gamecock fan, let me call Blanchard. I mean, I don't know, maybe so.
Blanchard Cat. I mean, I guess you need a backhoe to dig out a side of a hill or something because you want to put a building in that place. And if you're a Gamecock fan, do you choose Blanchard Cat because they support South Carolina if it's cheaper to get it somewhere else?
That's a good question.
I think people are going to choose with their wallet. But
logos on the jerseys.
Josh Whitman, AD at Illinois and chair of this Division I cabinet, said college sports are in an exciting new era of increased financial benefits for student athletes, and the cabinet's vote reflects the ongoing commitment of Division I members to drive additional revenues and fully fund those benefits. So here it is. You made us each put out $20 million a year to pay these student athletes. We got to make that money up somehow, and it's going to be putting logos. Wait until the moment, Cole, that they take away a traditionally placed logo like the G on the side of the Georgia helmet.
Sure.
Take that away and put a logo there in its place anyway.
I can't wait for how like nowadays, or it's always been this way, but like on the back of the player helmets, you have all the stickers from their accomplishments and all the things that they've done. I can't wait until they replace those with sponsor stickers. The helmets has all these little different stickers. You can't see them. You don't know what they are. Fans watching the game there can't tell. Fans at the game watching on TV, nobody can tell, but it's where we are. I wish I could say I was surprised by it, but I'm not.
So effective August 1st, all Division I teams will be permitted up to 2 commercial logos on their uniforms and apparel and 1 additional commercial logo on equipment during the preseason and regular season. They will also, Cole, this sounds a little bit conflicting, so I'm trying to figure this out with you at the same time. Patches will be limited to a maximum of 4. So it sounds like you could put upwards of 4 logos on a player's jersey.
It just goes back to what we talked about a couple of months ago, though. Like, who can see them? I guess on TV you can see them. when the players zoomed in on.
People are willing to buy it, though.
They're willing to buy it, but in the stadium, there is zero chance sitting in a college football stadium that you're going to be able to see a patch on a jersey.
What happens, though, and this is not far-fetched, what happens when a player wants to put his own logo of some company that he's in business with on his jersey, and the NCAA Division I committee here says that you can't do that? Are we going to have individual student athletes suing this Division I committee or Division I cabinet saying, well, I should be able to put my favorite logo on the back of my jersey if that's what I want to do?
Got a buddy of mine who owns a videography company, right? I want to put his logo on my jersey.
He said he's going to pay me $500,000 to put it right there on the shoulder pad.
Yeah.
Can you let me do that? If not, I'm going to sue you.
Don't we all love college athletics? Like, don't we just love this? Don't we just love every single piece of the pie?
Can we not just get one good piece of news? I mean, I guess the only good piece of news we've gotten is that Indiana won the national championship, a non-traditional power.
And guess what? That wouldn't have happened without the portal and NIL.
I know.
So I'm with you. What is the good
better.
news? Let's see. What if we could predict what is the next good piece of news we'll get in college football? That's a good question. Maybe for another day. What's the next good piece of news that we'll get that we'll say, you know what, as college football fans who are worried, sick about the sport?
How long we got to wait before we can before we're going to see this piece of news?
Might be a while. By the way, quick programming note for you Gamecock fans. Paul Maneri, the head baseball coach at South Carolina, joins the show tomorrow at 3:22 p.m. So right out of the gate, Paul Maneri will be on talking Gamecock baseball. It was a disaster last year, and we'll see what Paul Maneri says regarding the 2026 campaign. He'll join the show tomorrow at 3:22. The latest in the NFL head coaching carousel, one yesterday, one today. I believe those jobs are getting filled. Your reaction to that next.
on the Fan Upstate.
Diesel, you remember last week when we were talking about Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield, the drama from Cleveland, right? Well, the new Falcons head coach took the high road on Baker Mayfield's post. And I'll tell you what he said. We'll play that audio for you. Welcome in Wire to Wire, hour number 2 of the show. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. So good to be with you on a Tolo Tuesday. A big show still to come. We're talking college hoops in the very next segment with Rocco Miller of Bracketeer.org. But we go around the NFL and look at the openings. A couple of coaches hired this week as well, even one today. But Kevin Stefanski did choose to take the high road when it comes to Baker Mayfield's post.
Atlanta, looking forward to seeing you twice a year. Yeah, Baker's somebody that I have a ton of respect for as a player and a person. I love rivalries in sports, and obviously Buccaneers-Falcons have a great rivalry. It's something that I'm excited about, but I would not get into the specifics of those type of things other than to say I have a ton of respect for Baker as a player, as a person. That's a great team with a great player.
To keep the rivalry going, though, Diesel, Stefanski should have taken a jab there?
Yeah, take a jab at him. Take. I don't eat baked goods.
Come on, something. But nothing from Kevin Stefanski taking the high road. So where we are now, 2025-2026 season concluded, Diesel, and there were a lot of teams who decided to move on from their coaches after the 2025 season. Sean McDermott, gone. Jonathan Gannon with the Cardinals, gone. They went 3-14, by the way. Brian Daboll, gone. He was fired mid-season. Brian Callahan, also fired from Tennessee mid-season. Raheem Morris, gone. Pete Carroll, gone. Kevin Stefanski, gone. Mike McDaniel, Dolphins, gone. John Harbaugh, Ravens, gone. Mike Tomlin, gone. A lot of coaches who were out. And Diesel, as of today, there are now, let's see, make sure I have this right, 1, 2, 3 teams, the Arizona Cardinals, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Cleveland Browns, who still do not have a head coach. But let's react to the news from today. We also need to get into Mike McCarthy in Pittsburgh as well. But the news today that Joe Brady, remember Joe Brady from LSU taking Joe Burrow as the OC with Ed Orgeron to a national championship? That Joe Brady, who's been the offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills, has taken over for Buffalo after the firing of Sean McDermott. Right move, wrong move, or still up in the air in your mind, Diesel?
It's up in the air. Obviously, you never know what a coach is going to be, but needing the continuity that can keep Josh Allen happy, I think it's about as good a move as you're going to make right now. That still, to me, is a head-scratching move for them to have moved on from their head coach. So to try to maintain as much continuity as you can, it's probably the right thing. Maybe it's you keep all the same terminology, you keep some of the same staff, and you just tweak things a little bit, right? Maybe that ends up being a spark that sends this team some, higher than where they've been. But I mean, you certainly don't want a new coach coming in and having him clash with Josh Allen, and a year from now or 2 years from now, Josh Allen wanting out.
Do you know, Diesel, when it comes to Joe Brady, where he has been a head coach at prior to Buffalo?
I guess a high school.
Joe Brady has not been a head coach
ever at any level.
The high school, maybe Pee-wee, Pop Warner, maybe. Let me double check that. So he played at William and Mary. That's where he played college ball.
How about that? Just up the road from us.
So
old Bill and Mary.
That's right. He was a coach with the New Orleans Saints in 2017 under Sean Payton. He was an offensive assistant. In 2019, he joined Coach O as the passing game coordinator, Diesel, and wide receivers coach at LSU. He was recognized as the top assistant coach during that 2019 season. Brady was honored with a 24th annual Broyles Award. Another highlight, Joe Burrow won the Heisman Trophy that year, right? National championship. He was a big story after that 2019 season concluded. He goes to the Carolina Panthers as the offensive coordinator under head coach Matt Rule in 2020 during COVID. A very short tenure. The Panthers staff were selected to coach in the 2021 Senior Bowl, but Brady missed that game, Diesel, due to COVID protocols. On December 5th, 2021, Brady was fired by the Panthers. Then he landed in Buffalo as the quarterback's coach in 2022. They then fired Ken Dorsey, the OC, after a 5-5 start to the 2023 season. Brady was promoted to interim OC, and their offense was good under Joe Brady, has been good. I just wonder, though, you mentioned the continuity. Does a lot change from Sean McDermott to Joe Brady? Like, maybe it does, but what changes, I guess, is what I want to know.
Well,
I find it interesting.
I guess when you have a winning culture the way that they do, and I'm trying to pull this stat from memory. What was their record under McDermott?
It was pretty good.
It was like 98,
pretty good,
50. So essentially 675 or 667, like 2 out of 3. It's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So like I said, I guess you get to hold on to as much of that as you can without changing a lot. And again, maybe you just take a little step forward, and a little step forward is winning playoff games and reaching the Super Bowl.
No, it's interesting. It really is. There are, Diesel, as many NFL head coaching jobs as are open right now, or a few weeks ago. I mean, there's only a few open now, but as many jobs as we saw come open this NFL offseason, I think it's just natural that you're going to have some home run hires, but I think it's also natural that you're going to have some hires.
It's the way of the world.
The Baltimore Ravens, for example. We talked about this briefly last week. Jesse Minter. The Chargers? I mean,
Everybody gets their first head coaching job at some point, right? I mean, even legendary coaches were unknown coaches at one point. But when you're the Baltimore Ravens, what are you doing hiring the guy that nobody's ever heard of?
You fired Harbaugh, who was, a very good coach, right? They didn't get it done. There's no doubt about that. But he was a very good coach. So that one's interesting. Then you go down the list. You look at what else happened. Buffalo Bills now promoting Joe Brady. We hadn't touched on this yet at all, Diesel. This happened late last week, I believe it was, on Friday or Saturday. The Pittsburgh Steelers moved. Well, I don't know if moved on is the right word. Mike Tomlin left Pittsburgh. I don't know if he was – I don't know the situation.
He was probably invited to step down or told, if you don't, we're going to have to make a decision.
I would imagine.
And Coach, you've been here a long time. We respect you. We want to let you go out on your terms, so you choose how you want to leave.
That's what I would assume as well.
And we're going to pay you a couple $1 million to walk away.
Yeah, here's take that envelope that's under your chair, by the way. It would be hard for me to believe, Diesel, that all of a sudden Mike Tomlin, without any pushing that you just talked about there, just decided, I'm good, I'm done. I don't really like the salary anymore. It's just not for me.
If it didn't happen the year before or the year before or the year before, when the result was the same, why would it have happened that way now?
I'm good. So he leaves. The Pittsburgh Steelers, who have hired young, and when I say young, I mean in the 30s, which is pretty young for NFL head coaching standard, Diesel. The past 3 hires for Pittsburgh has been 30s, 30s, 30s. Well, then, what does Pittsburgh do? Pittsburgh hires Mike McCarthy, another, kind of like a Jeff, maybe this isn't fair. Not as bad as like Jeff Hafley to Miami, but a very higher. So Mike McCarthy is a Pittsburgh guy. That's where he's from. That's kind of his DNA. You can hear it in his voice. But Diesel, things didn't end well for McCarthy in Green Bay. Things didn't end well for McCarthy in Dallas. I did not expect this. He spent the past season on, the Pat McAfee show, doing guest appearances on other shows out there. Yeah. Maybe this is the theme for this offseason in the NFL. You've got a big job like the Ravens, they hire Jesse Minter. A big job like the Bills, they hire Joe Brady. A big job like the Pittsburgh Steelers, they hire Mike McCarthy. Buffalo Bills, big job. I mean, maybe that's the theme this offseason is, you said it a minute ago. Some of these guys are getting their first crack. Mike McCarthy's a retread, as you like to call him. Mm-hmm. This one makes me scratch my head a little bit as well.
Isn't it fascinating, though, that so many of the biggest jobs in the NFL, like the blue blood franchises. They all needed head coaches in the same year. Like, not one of them
Couldn't be good.
Not one of them said, "Hey, let's pause on this for just a minute," because literally everybody else is looking for head coaches at the same time. I mean, I'm looking around at who may be looking for head coaches next year, and obviously unforeseen things could happen here, Cole. But the jobs that might be coming up next year, they're nowhere close to the level of the Ravens, the Steelers, the job have come up. Like, maybe we're looking at the Chiefs next year if Adams. Like, what job?
He would be.
Franchises would be next year, not me.
You know what's interesting about that? We kind of had that same conversation in college football this year. These jobs open. We even talked about it from a local perspective with Shane Beamer, right? Well, why would you fire Shane Beamer this year? You've got all these other big openings out there. You had Penn State. You had all these other huge openings out there, and you didn't want to fire anybody. So it's very similar to the college game in that aspect. There are only 3 head coaching vacancies left. I just think, though, when you look at the entirety of this offseason, Robert Saleh, Tennessee Titans. I like John Harbaugh to the Giants, but Kevin Stefanski to the Atlanta Falcons, Jeff Hafley to the Miami Dolphins, Jesse Minter to the Baltimore Ravens, Joe Brady to the Bills, Mike McCarthy. I'm not saying they're all going to be bust, Diesel, but I think what's going to be interesting if you and I did a study, an experiment, and wrote these names down on a whiteboard, Jesse Minter, Joe Brady, McCarthy, Hafley, Stefanski, Harbaugh, and Saleh, I would not be surprised if a lot of these names or these jobs are opening again soon. I just don't have a ton of confidence in them.
Yeah, I mean, if a guy comes in without a whole lot of fanfare and a whole lot of excitement, and he's bad a year and a half, 2 years into this thing, they could pull the plug on him again and hit the refresh button.
So let me ask you this. As of right now, at this very moment, and Adam Schefter says these 3 a deal will be done here pretty soon. But as of this very moment, you have 3 jobs left open. What does this say about these 3? The Las Vegas Raiders, Cleveland Browns, and the Arizona Cardinals, who lost 14 of its final 15 games this season and looked really, really bad. If you had to power rank those 3, most attractive being 1, least attractive being 3, this is a difficult task because all 3 are pretty bad. But the Browns had a good defense.
Yeah.
The Las Vegas Raiders, they've got good players like Brock Bowers and Ashton Jeanty, but Max Crosby's got up in it. How would you rank them?
Oh, that's pretty easy in my mind. Number 1 is the Raiders because you got the players that you just mentioned, and you got Fernando Mendoza coming in. Number 2, probably the Cleveland Browns. Because Shedeur did step up at the end of the season, and he's looking better and better. By the way, did you see that he's a Pro Bowl selection now? How about that?
I guess, and again, this could be an entire segment here. But what does the Pro Bowl mean anymore? Shedeur Sanders, by the numbers, is not anywhere close to a Pro Bowler.
They needed a warm body.
Oh my God,
he's a seat filler.
And somebody will get mad at me for saying that, but dear God, those aren't Pro Bowl. Those aren't even close to Pro Bowl numbers.
What, he playing like 5 games? And now he's a Pro Bowl. They needed somebody to fill in because Drake May's going to the Super Bowl. And then number 3 is Arizona. Like, I know you're playing in a warmer climate and you've got a dome, and that counts for more. Like, quality of life, I think, is better in Arizona than it is in Cleveland.
By the way, 7 touchdowns to 10 interceptions.
Oh, God.
7 to 10 for a touchdown interception ratio. There's your Pro Bowl or Shedeur's in.
So, but if you're Arizona, who's your quarterback? I mean, it's Kyler, but like, for how long?
Not long term. No.
Right.
He's not the long term guy. He's been bad. There's no really viable path right now to kind of solving that situation, and that's the unfortunate part of it. They also, Arizona's set to have only around $21 million in cap room.
Oh God!
And only Panthers. I know. And only $9.8 million in effective cap space. So per overthecap.com, it's not looking good in terms of what they're able to do in the offseason. So you're right. Arizona's 3 of the 3 that are open. Raiders won. Good players. Now, I think it's going to be a long time more competitive in the AFC West, Diesel, but the AFC West is one of the most competitive divisions in football. I just think similar to the Tennessee Titans, they can take a major jump next season if they hit on their coach and they hit on their quarterback. But the Tom Brady aspect of this, with him being a minority owner with the Las Vegas Raiders, is interesting because now we just talked about it. All these coaches have been hired. Who are you going to hit on the week of January 26th, 2 weeks before the Super Bowl is played, where you feel like that this is going to be a home run hire?
Yeah.
I don't know. I would say they'd have a better shot if Tom just came down from ownership and coached the team.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine if they had gotten John Harbaugh? John and Jim would have been coaching in the same division. How amazing would that have been?
Yeah.
God, that'd have been great. But to that point, though, if they get a competent coach in there, I wouldn't be shocked if the Raiders possibly jump the Chiefs in a year or two, possibly jump the Chargers in a couple of years as Justin Herbert gets older and older. I mean, Fernando Mendoza, really good. Give him 2 years. We'll see what happens. I mean, could you imagine also the day coming that the Chiefs are last place in the AFC West?
No, I couldn't imagine that. I'm reading in real time. The Las Vegas Raiders met with 15 candidates as they continue an extensive search. But now this is the 4th week, Diesel, they've been interviewing coaches. That's a long time.
Yeah.
You don't interview coaches for 4 weeks.
Matt Rule, Terry Bradshaw, the Michelin Man, all of them interviewed for the job.
It doesn't sound good. So of the candidates interviewed, only Clint Kubiak cannot be announced as the next head coach as the Seattle Seahawks play in the Super Bowl. He's with Seattle right now. Adam Schefter did report. He said, I would think that we would have all of these head coaching jobs filled this week, probably sooner rather than later. I wouldn't be surprised if by end of day Wednesday there are no openings left. Adam Schefter said, the Raiders, it looks like it could be Davis Webb. Joe Brady's there today. This was on Monday. So Joe Brady now hired with the Bills. And then you throw in a guy, Diesel, that was a candidate for the Bills job, and Brian Daboll, the former Giants head coach. Brian Daboll was fired during the season. Davis Webb, Sean Payton right now. He is on the Broncos staff, highly respected assistant coach. It wouldn't be a name that's a sexy name that would excite you if you're a Raiders fan. But at the same time, did you feel like Brian Daboll and Fernando Mendoza? I mean, how do you feel about that?
And he'd be moving in division too.
Same
do they
division.
Feel that much about
same division? Yeah, you're right.
They feel the same way we do about that.
Be interesting, wouldn't it?
It's hard to know. Hey, when we come back, let's dive deep into the world of men's college basketball. The owner of Bracketeer.org, Rocco Miller, going to join Wire to Wire next. The men's basketball teams in our immediate area taking a bit of a break with the winter storm that just made its way through. Talking all things college basketball with Rocco Miller, bracketeer.org. Rocco, generally speaking, how do teams react to extended breaks like this that are sort of unexpected mid-season? And who do you like that always tends to take maximum advantage of breaks like this in the middle of the season?
Yeah, good question. Great to be back with you guys this week. I would say, in general, teams don't mind it because at this point in the year, nobody's 100% healthy. There's sore ankles, sore knees, a lot of sore parts of the body. So getting a few extra days of rest and recovery and preparation isn't necessarily a bad thing at most places. There's also just different things that you might want to install offensively, defensively that you just don't have time to do if you're in a Thursday, Saturday, like mid-major type of league. Even in the bigger leagues where you play Wednesday, Saturday, or Tuesday, Saturday, it can be tough with travel to try to shake things up too much schematically. So this is an opportunity to not only recover and rest, but also tighten up some of your rotations and scheme stuff if necessary. So I don't think a lot of coaches mind it. In fact, they're embracing it. I think the other thing too is you got to prepare for when the makeup games might be, if that's a thing. So that way, if you do have a 3-game week in a week, you got to be ready to roll with that. So I know they won't like it as much when they have to play that many games in a row, but I think for now they're okay with it.
Rocco Miller, Cole here. Appreciate you hopping on with us as always, man. Let me ask you this. Convince me otherwise. I watched Duke Louisville last night, and I know Arizona won big over BYU. Totally get it. They're number one. They're undefeated. They're a really good team. But Duke, to me, looks like the best team in college basketball right now. Convince me otherwise.
It's tough to argue. I got to see Duke in person when they came out to the West Coast as well, and they just gobble you up defensively. I mean, it's really hard to run anything successfully against that defense. And after a 40-minute game where you're playing 10 different segments, 5 segments per half, it just wears teams down. I saw it happen to Louisville last night. Of course, you saw it happen in the games when they came out and played Stanford and Cal and a bunch of other examples. And a big reason why is, you saw Patrick Ngangba have one of his best games, scoring 15 points, but he's also 6'11", 250 pounds on defense. Malik Brown, 6'9", 225. Dame Sawyer, 6'8", only 190, but a freakish leaper that can really, really defend. So they have 3 elite defenders in the front court, and then you have Isaiah Evans on the perimeter, and he can even take the on-ball guard for the other team, and he has velociraptor-type arms. It's just hard to get anything done offensively against this Duke team. So Duke can afford to go cold in games and still extend the lead. It's pretty impressive. And I do believe there's a very high floor for this team. I'm wondering what happens in some of those big matchups. Obviously, we saw them lose by a point to Texas Tech in a late collapse. We saw them almost collapse against Florida at home in a 1-point win. So when they will play the elite teams, they'll play Michigan in the middle of February. That will be fascinating. That's where I want to see how they match up. I think when you play a lot of the ACC, though, they're just going to run into a brick wall with Duke's defensive. It's an elite defense.
Rocco Miller 8 on Twitter is where you should definitely go find him and give him a follow. Opinion time. What do you think should happen with Alabama and any wins that they may earn under Charles Bediako while he's eligible to play if he's ultimately deemed ineligible? And man, what a wild story, getting a little additional time with Charles with this weather coming through, pushing the court date back, and the judge himself being an Alabama booster. This is just it's a crazy story, right?
It's a crazy story, and I think there's so much more at stake than just if he's eligible or not individually, mainly because you have to rewind to when Charles Bediako was a sophomore, and he did what a lot of underclassmen do in basketball and do what's called declare and forego your eligibility to be in the NBA draft. That's the most important part of this decision. This is why you're seeing the NCAA heavily involved, because if he is successfully able to come back, that would effectively make those rules that the NCAA has been enforcing for as long as we can remember, since they've been in alignment with the NBA on that, it will basically render it unenforceable. And that will mean early entry deadlines will no longer be potentially enforced. If you can't enforce that, guys can hang around forever and then decide to come back to college. And conversely, you could have college players that if that agreement breaks, you could have college players signed mid-season by the pro leagues, which is now today currently not allowed under that same principle. So it's a big difference between what Bediako is going through and what we've seen with some of the other G League players. In all of those examples, those players never forego their eligibility. So that's the big thing. So I think that to me is a ripping the sport apart at the seams scenario if the Bediako approval is to carry forward long-term and ruled that the NCAA cannot deny him from playing in this semester, which is basically the premise of it, right? The 5-year clock that they have approved on some of these other guys. It's really different, though, because he's the first one that really announced and declared that he's foregoing his eligibility. So from the NCAA's rule book, that means he is no longer allowed to play. And that is being challenged right now. So, again, that's going to have long-lasting effects. As it pertains to Alabama's long-term future, I think that the fact that they're even trying to go this far to get him shows that they're actually in a little bit of trouble with what they foresee with their roster. As we saw with Baylor went out and got Najee from the G League. They've been pretty bad since they got him. They're well outside of the tournament now. And so I think that's been the interesting thing is fans don't realize that the coaching staffs are going to get these guys because they really need them, and they're trying to solve a big problem. But in the long run, it's going to do a lot. This Bediako thing could do a ton of damage and fundamentally change the way the sport is operated.
Rocco, on Saturday, man, watched a really good one. You did as well, and a lot of college basketball fans saw Texas Tech, man, put it on Houston 90-86, a very close game, a really good game. I asked you about Duke being the best team. I'm going to do the same thing. Convince me otherwise that JT Toppin's not the best player in college basketball.
Well, he's certainly paid like he potentially is. I know they threw an extra $1 million at him just so he wouldn't work out for NBA teams. He was an important asset, and Texas Tech's not low on money, let's be honest. But they have an interesting strategy, the way they play. Jeff Linder runs the offense there. He's the former Wyoming head coach, goes way back with Grant McCaslin, and he is one of a very unique coach. When he coached at Wyoming, they had Hunter Maldonado and Graham Ike, who, of course, is now one of the stars for Gonzaga, and he just loves to force feed the paint. And you saw him do that in this Houston matchup. Toppin took 24 shots in the game. That was not an accident. And they had a deliberate strategy after losing at Houston earlier this year in another close game. And the 1-2 punch of him and Christian Anderson, it's really hard to beat a two-man duo anywhere in college basketball than those two. And they've been able to get a nice boost from freshman Jalen Petty, played tremendous in this game. He's from my hometown of Seattle originally. He was not expected to be that big of a factor this season. He's one of their most important players right now. And the transfer Lawan Watts from Washington State also playing really well most of this year. Didn't have a good game in that one. But Texas Tech, they are figuring out the things they're good at and getting rid of things that they're not as elite at. And that's going to make them really dangerous as the season goes on.
The next three opponents for our Clemson Tigers here, Pitt, they're struggling a little bit, but then they're on the road at Stanford and on the road at Cal. Two really good teams, 14 and 15 win teams respectively. When I'm looking at their matchup predictors, they're given a 68% chance or better to beat both of those teams, even though they're both really good. What is it about Stanford and Cal that you think the computers just don't like against this Clemson team?
Well, I think the computers are so predicated on margin of victory scores. So you've seen Stanford, for example, lose to teams like Notre Dame 47-40. They lost to UNLV at a game I was at, but they're also very capable of beating good teams. I was also at the game when they beat Louisville. I saw them. They've got 4 tournament level wins this year. And the big story at Stanford right now is just announced last week was Chisholm Akpara being out for the year. I think that's a potentially major issue because they run a ton of ball screen pick and roll with their star, Ibuka Okore, the freshman phenom. another tremendous freshman. We have several of them across the country, but now they've really got to use another piece to run that pick and roll action. I think it's going to take them a couple of games to adjust. They're down in Florida this week, so a very far trip for them to play both Florida State and Miami. Sometimes on these cross-country travel trips, the data tells us it's when you get back is when you have your poor performance. So maybe in Clemson's first game of that West Coast trip, they'll be in decent shape against Stanford. But then for Cal's a team growing in confidence. They actually have really improved their outside shooting. They're one of the top three-point shooting teams in the ACC, which is crazy to say because last season they were by far the worst team out of 18. So they addressed their big gaping hole with shooting. I'm not sold on them as a defense fully quite yet, but I was impressed with them being able to go to Stanford and get that win last weekend. And, it's really fun. The fact that we have the ACC on the West Coast now, it's good that we have two teams that are at least flirting with the bubble for now, and they've both got some really good wins. California beat North Carolina. Both teams beat North Carolina, and California's beaten UCLA, and so they've got a chance.
Rocco, you mentioned the bubble there with March looming. I'm going to go ahead and get this out there and ask the question today as we are approaching the end of January with the tournament kicking off in mid-March. When you look at the top 25, I don't know how you feel, but as a college basketball fan, I want to see the best teams, in the tournament, especially late in the tournament, duking it out. I've loved this season. It seems like there are a lot of heavyweights in college basketball, and that excites me for the tournament unless there is a Cinderella that comes along. From what you've seen, who could be that Cinderella that you're keeping an eye on for March?
We'd love to see that. I think that's the growing story right now is just the elites have just gotten even more elite. Right. There's 14 very strong teams. There's 5 bona fide 1 seeds. You can only give 4 1 seeds out. So luckily Michigan plays Nebraska tonight. We're going to start splitting those teams up here soon. But I think when it comes to Cinderella, it depends on how far you want to go. I think if you're comfortable calling St. Louis a Cinderella, well, there you go. This St. Louis team looks extremely dangerous. They've pretty much bulldozed nearly everybody they've played. They've been in a couple close ones. Their one loss is a fluke loss to that Stanford team on a play where they got fouled. They fouled up 3, and the guy makes the first free throw, second free throw misses, and a rainbow kick out for the win. And that's how St. Louis lost their only game. But they have a high major roster. They can really go. They just blew out a decent St. Bonaventure team by 35. They'll play George Washington tonight. I really like the way that team can play, especially against upper competition. We can't wait to see that as long as they can get through. And then if you want a deeper sleeper, I'm going to go see tomorrow night. I'm on my way to the airport soon. I'll be looking at Murray State. They started off 8-0 in the Missouri Valley. Had a bad week last week. They did the Iowa trip and lost both in close games to Drake in Northern Iowa. But I like the makeup of their roster. Similar to St. Louis, just not as ironed on defense quite yet. But Ryan Miller did a great job. Hits his first year on the job. Came over from Creighton. They're running similar offense that you're familiar with in years past from the Blue Jays. And they have a bunch of future pros on that team. I think if Murray State can win Arch Madness, they'll be a tough out.
Rocco, are we going to see any of the traditional mid-majors that only get 1 bid get a second one this year? Are you looking at any conferences that just have an abundance of power this year that they don't normally have?
I wish, but I think the main hope centers around Miami of Ohio and their 20-0 start so far. They're taking the court tonight against UMass. If Miami, Ohio can get to the finish line with 30 wins and not win the MAC tournament, that would give the MAC two bids. That would probably be your best bet. I mean, even in the American Conference, a conference that's well funded compared to their peers, just no real strong resumes. They've got 5 teams at the top with 2 losses. Nobody with a really good non-conference resume, and Memphis has really fallen apart. So you're probably only seeing 1 team from the American. So unfortunately, in this transfer portal and super conference era, all of the talent, not all of it, but 90-something% of it has bubbled up to the top. When you have like the 9th best player on an SEC team making more money than the best player on some of these teams at this level, it makes it very tough to field a team that could, be consistently good to the point where you win 26 to 30 games. And that's why we just ran out of options this year.
Rocco, my last question for you, man. When you look at the SoCon, you mentioned one bid leagues there. The SoCon's interesting this year with some of the predominant powers meddling near the middle of the pack right now. Who stands out to you? What surprised you so far from what you've seen in the SoCon this season?
Yeah, it's been an interesting year. I mean, obviously very disappointing from a non-conference standpoint. I think is the worst performing year they've had in a long time, but so much of that is due to injuries. Chattanooga has been riddled with injuries. Right now, East Tennessee State in first place at 7-1. I think we all knew going into the season they would have the best defense in the league, and that's really held up. It holds up for them time and time again. But their offense is certainly it's decent. It's third best in league play currently. They've had some shaky performances on that end, and you're just not sold who's going to win that SoCon tournament because of that. I think East Tennessee State's still the safest choice because the defense is so solid and it's a great backbone to live off of. But I love the upside of Mercer. I think the two players at Mercer, Baraka Okoji and Armani Mighty, who's had just some amazing performances lately at a 25 rebound game not too long ago. Mercer's super intriguing. I think that'd be a very fun team for the country to see in March Madness. But obviously Wofford's been playing pretty well. They just knocked Mercer off to take second place for today. And Furman, if they can get fully healthy, along with Chattanooga, you can't write those teams off either. Samford as well, sitting there at 3-5, forgotten about for now. They have a lot of talent there. So all of those traditional powers, when it comes SoCon tournament time, don't be shocked if a 5 or a 6 seed wins that whole thing.
Rocco Miller, your knowledge cup runneth over. We appreciate your insights each and every week. Thanks, pal.
My pleasure. Anytime. Look forward to next week.
Good stuff as always from the best, and I mean the best. Diesel, a lot of headlines, sports stories to get to. We'll get to them in our Daily Wires next, right here on the Fan Upstate. lot, and I mean a lot to get to today in this very segment we call them our Daily Wires. It's the sports buzz. Everybody likes a little sports buzz.
I went long because there's a lot of buzz.
I like that. Per Pete Thamel, we talked about this to start the show today, Diesel. Duke and Darian Mensah have reached an agreement on his buyout, paving the way for him to transfer to Miami, where he was on campus today, and that has already been reported. The details have not quite been released, but we read the statement earlier, and that obviously the biggest news of the day.
Huge. Could be monumental in the future of this sport.
Speaking of Duke looked good last night. My goodness, they defeated number 20 Louisville. Duke number 4, by the way, as of right now, last night by a score of 83-52. The Blue Devils are now 19-1 on the season, 8-0 in ACC play. Also in top 25 basketball last night, number 1 Arizona defeated number 13 BYU by a score of 86-83. Very close game there. Arizona is now a perfect 21-0 on the season. That's pretty good, dude. I don't know if you know that or not.
Hopefully a mid-major just comes and knocks them off in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
Right.
That's what we're all hoping for, right?
The Washington Commanders are finalizing a deal to hire Durante Jones of the Minnesota Vikings as their next defensive coordinator. A source told ESPN on Monday Jones will take over for Joe Witt, who was fired earlier this month after 2 seasons with Washington. The Commanders will have 2 inexperienced coordinators in 2026 after replacing Cliff Kingsbury and David Blau on offense shortly after the season ended.
It's not a good recipe.
No.
2 inexperienced coordinators.
No, it's not. No, not in the NFC East. Top-ranked Carlos Alcaraz moved within 2 wins of completing a career Grand Slam after a 7-5, 6-2, and 6-1 victory over Alex de Minaur to close play Tuesday at the Australian Open. I don't know how many players have reached the Grand Slam, Diesel, but that's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive there. Last night, the Hornets defeated the 76ers 130-93 at home for their 3rd straight win. Those Hornets, baby.
Hey.
How about them?
Hey, Joel Embiid didn't play in this game.
Well, it doesn't matter. Ever since the Hornets got P.J. Hall, it all of a sudden, winning ways. I'm just saying, they're now 9 games under 500.
There are 4 players, Cole, since 1965
dear God,
who have completed the career Grand Slam in men's tennis.
And Carlos Alcaraz.
And it's a who's who.
Away.
Andre Agassi, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Novak Djokovic. And Novak did it in 2016, so it's been almost 10 years.
That's a pretty good list to be on. Yep, pretty good list to be on. By the way, Brandon Miller had 30 points last night, 8 rebounds. Con Knippel, 12 points. All 5 Hornets starters and 3 bench players scored in double figures. South Carolina women's basketball back in action Thursday on the road at Auburn. The NCAA is looking for Tuscaloosa Circuit Judge James Roberts, an Alabama athletics donor, to recuse himself from the Charles Bediako eligibility lawsuit.
How is he even allowed to be on this thing in the first place?
I was about to ask the same question.
A little bit of a conflict of interest.
So he's the judge who granted Bediako 2 different temporary restraining orders, which allowed him to play for the
and now he gets a little extra time because his court date was pushed back because of the bad weather in Alabama this week.
That's crazy to me. That is great. To your point, I mean, how did that even happen? I mean, that's some Murdaugh stuff there, right?
This judge should have recused himself.
Should.
Right? I mean,
well, it's Alabama.
You gotta, right. You gotta believe that that judges have enough class and dignity to say, you know what? I'm too close to the situation. I can't be involved in ruling on this case.
But it could benefit.
But it could benefit the tide.
The tide, so, baby. That's all that matters.
Dude, you know what we need now? We need a TV show like Judge Judy, but with Roll Tide Willie.
Oh, that'd be great.
As the judge.
That'd be a good idea.
He could be the judge, the bailiff.
That'd be a really
plaintiff
good
in
idea.
Just about every case, too.
Yeah, I like that. 2 more for you. Former Olympic snowboarder. We talked about this in hour number 1. Ryan Wedding, accused of leading a billion-dollar drug trafficking organization, pleaded not guilty to federal indictments in Santa Ana, California. Wedding, Diesel, 44 years old, competed for Canada in the 2002 Olympics. And
unbelievable.
faces 17 charges related to drug trafficking and murder.
How do you plead not guilty to that? Like,
Not
it
guilty.
feels like there's
No.
mountain of
No,
evidence.
no.
There's an Mount Everest of evidence against you.
Nah, I'm good. Lawyer up, baby. Lawyer up. He was arrested in Mexico after being on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list. Shout out to Wesley Roberts, who just jumped in on the Facebook stream. Good to hear from you. Hadn't heard from you in a while.
Apparently, I haven't confirmed this, but apparently he posted something on Instagram and they used his IP address to get him.
Oh,
Come
not smart.
on, man.
Not smart. Last one for you. Toronto Maple Leafs winger William Nylander received a $5,000 fine from the NHL for flipping off a broadcast camera during a game.
This move right here.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Totally. I'm this close to a $5,000 fine from the NHL.
This was a game he wasn't playing in due to injury. Nylander apologized, acknowledging it was a mistake out of frustration, but it was an expensive mistake for flipping off the camera. And
shouldn't have done it.
those, ladies and gentlemen, are your Daily Wires.
God, could you imagine what gesture, Cole, would you get fined the most for? Do you engage in any kind of gestures that get you in trouble?
I have road rage sometimes.
I flip the bird a lot.
I have road rage.
That's a problem. I say the F word too much.
Yeah.
I curse way too much. I would be in rough shape.
Yeah. My road rage, I'm not proud of it.
It's Wire to
Working
Wire
back.
with Diesel and Cole Bryce. And Cole, when we come back, let's debate. And I need you Tolos to be involved here as well. What was the best game that your team played in 2025? You can go off statistics. You can go off of what game meant the most, or you can just simply go off vibes. What was the best game that your team played in 2025? That's next. Cole, as you look back on your Dallas Cowboys season, and if you're looking back and trying to find elements that make you feel good, you may kind of hold that little glimmer of we look good in this game. And that's enough for me to not look at the season as a total wash. What games do you look to? It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Tolos 844-326-3663. Do a little postmortem on your team's season. Even if they didn't have a particularly great season overall, what was the best game that your team played in 2025? You could go off stats. You could go off of what game meant the most, rivalry games, vibes, whatever you want to pick. Which one are you looking back on and saying, that one is the one that I'm going to ignore all the rest, and I'm only going to think about that game?
Well, number one, it's hard to do because I don't like losing, and I especially don't like missing the postseason, right? But Dallas Cowboys did miss the postseason. However, to answer your question, I would say Thanksgiving was a good time of year this year because the Dallas Cowboys on November 23rd, for me, you beat the Philadelphia Eagles 24-21. You felt good about yourself. There was still some playoff hope. Then on Thanksgiving Day, you beat Kansas City. You beat Patrick Mahomes, Diesel, 31-28. So you had two really good weeks there. Now,
Normally means a lot.
You went on to lose the next three. The Lions, the Vikings, and the Chargers.
I remember you those 2 weeks. You, Dale, Delvin, all you lousy Cowboy fans were riding high. You mean you were Superfly TNT, Guns of the Navarone. Nobody could tell you nothing.
The problem is the defense was so bad. Even you go back to, hey, I'll give you one more in this season, September 20th. We scored 40 points on the Green Bay Packers. Diesel, I don't know if you know, scoring 40 should win you the game.
Should.
It didn't. We tied.
Theoretically.
Tied.
Oh.
I mean, what are we doing here? So
it's not good.
There were a few bright spots, but I will tell you this, in my entire lifetime of pulling for the Cowboys, this was one of the tougher ones because Dak played at such a high level. He was so good. George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb were phenomenal, but the defense, Matt Eberflus, was atrocious. So it was a tough year. I was ready for this football season to be over with, in fact.
Chris on the stream says the Carolina, not to rub it in, not to put salt in the wound, but he says the Carolina Panthers beating those Cowboys and the playoff game against the Rams. There's no moral victories, but I enjoy the playoff game, even though the Panthers lost.
I'm glad he brought that up because even as a Cowboys fan, I would say that's a big win. It doesn't matter how bad the Cowboys are. I was there for that game. It was at your stadium. Carolina's the home team. You have all these Dallas fans there talking all this trash, right? And there are more Cowboy fans there than you are. But guess what? You get the last laugh. And Carolina loved that. And then the playoff game, I mean, was there a better environment in the past
amazing.
5 years?
Bummer to lose it the way that you did. But come on, Matt Stafford took his team to the divisional championship game.
Sure.
Or the league championship game.
Sure.
Cole, let's do the South Carolina Gamecocks now. How about that? South Carolina Gamecock fans, what game do you feel the best about that you played in 2025? Wesley says South Carolina blowing the lead to Texas A&M was pretty fun.
As a Clemson fan.
Okay. That little bit of context matters there. With South Carolina, though, you got the 24-11 win in week 1 against Virginia Tech. I was in Atlanta. I was at that game. The vibes were high inside of Mercedes-Benz Stadium. You follow that up with a blowout 38-10 win over South Carolina State. Okay, then you stumble the following week against Vandy. And then you stumbled the following week again on the road at Missouri. Oh, you bounce back. You beat the tar out of Kentucky at home 35-13, and then it was a while until you played Coastal Carolina, beat them 51-7, but you did it. You beat the tar out of them without their starting quarterback. I don't know if that would have changed a whole lot. But if you're a South Carolina fan, Cole, what are you looking at as to say that this was the best game our team played?
That's tough to choose. being the fact that you only won 4.
Context has to matter, right?
I like
scoring 51 on Coastal don't mean much.
No, I like what Keith and TR said on the Joy Law Firm text line. He said the game after Mike Shula was fired. Bam, there you go. There's your best moment.
That's good.
Look, you beat Virginia Tech, South Carolina State, Kentucky, and Coastal. So it's slim pickings, right? When it comes to what we're having to choose, I guess you'd say the opener, the opener
had to be right.
Yeah, 24-11. You're 1-0. You felt good. Then you lost 2 weeks later to Vandy in a game that wasn't close. So that season dropped off really, really quick. But not a lot to choose from.
Kentucky was 5-7, by the way, beating the crap out of Kentucky. I mean, it's a conference win, and
but
it felt like South Carolina had crossed that threshold to the point where they're regularly beating up on Kentucky again.
But
you kind of bested them as a program.
The problem is you lost 2 in a row before that. So even though you beat Kentucky, you kind of felt like, we're great. We're 3-2 now before we play LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, and A&M. Yeah. So it was a really, really bad year. But I'd say Virginia Tech.
I think you're probably right. I mean, you didn't look particularly amazing offensively in that game. I remember that. You had a couple of big plays on special teams, and that helped. And the offense doesn't look great. The offensive line doesn't look great. I remember having some Gamecock fans in my Twitter mentions saying, "Who do you think you are?" saying that the offensive line isn't very good. Proven right over time on that one, Cole. But week 1 of the season, you go into it thinking like, all right, we're gonna start off a little slow. But we got Lenora Sellers, and we got all these playmakers, and we're going to be okay. And you win that game on the road in a neutral site. Everybody's watching. I think that's got to be the most impressive win of the season.
I think the most impressive win was hiring the offensive coordinator.
Well, that was after the season.
I know, but I'm just going to throw that. I mean, you get Kendall Briles. It wasn't a game. I know that's not what you were asking for, but it felt like a big win after a really, really bad year. By the way, Tolo's phone lines are open as well at 844-326-3663. A couple of Tolos getting in on the Joy Law Firm. But how bad is that, though? That the biggest wins of the season for South Carolina were when you fired Mike Shula and hired Kendall Briles.
Yeah.
I mean, that just shows you. That sums it up. It was that bad.
Tough.
It was one of the worst in a long time. They cannot have anywhere close to that again next year.
A little harder to do, Cole, if you're a Clemson Tigers fan, to answer this question.
Okay.
Right. I mean, you had a game against LSU that you were in. You had some tough losses against SMU. You had an ugly performance defensively against Duke. But hey, you got a big win over a ranked Louisville team. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got a big win over your rival in South Carolina, 28-14. What game, if you're a Clemson fan, based off of stats, vibes, whatever, do you feel the best? What game do you feel like Clemson played their absolute best in this year?
That one's tough as well. I will say you brought up the LSU loss. Mm-hmm. What's interesting about that game, you know how like you look back on things differently once you know the outcome? I was at that game as a fan. I left that game walking out, and obviously Clemson fans that night were very disappointed. But there were still some Clemson fans that were optimistic in the fact that it was only a touchdown and an extra point loss to an LSU team that we thought was going to be playing for maybe a national championship, right? That didn't pan out. So at the time, it almost felt like not a moral victory, but yes, it's a loss to LSU, but we still feel good.
It's not a vibe killer. That's
not a vibe killer. Still a lot of football to go. Then you beat Troy. And then the next week when you go lose to Georgia Tech and then you lose the very next week at home to Syracuse, it was like, fire everybody. You're 1-3. Things got bad. You did reel off 2 in a row against North Carolina. Bad North Carolina. Bad Boston College. But then you lost to SMU and Duke back-to-back. Yeah. So to answer your question, best win, it certainly wasn't North Carolina or Boston College. For me, it'd have to be one of the last 3, Florida State, Louisville, or South Carolina. And I guess you have to say South Carolina just because it's your rival.
Yeah. Vibes were super high. I mean, Cade had a big game in that one, 268 through the air. He had a really good game. I mean, he had a huge performance against Duke. I mean, talk about wasting a performance. 385 for Cade Klubnik, 142 yards in the air receiving for Antonio Williams. That was just a monster game. How does your defense let that game happen?
And well, for
Tom Allen defense.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is for South Carolina, that game in particular, the Clemson-Carolina game, I think the reason for me it is the biggest win, the one you do point back to, not only is it a rival, you had won 3 straight, and you go into that game at South Carolina thinking, man, it's a road game. It's going to be tough. I know their season's been terrible, but they want this one bad. Hey, and they beat us last year at our place, right? The revenge factor. Now, the Penn State win, if you would have beaten Penn State, would be up there because it's a Big Ten team, even though they weren't anywhere close to what we thought they would be, according to the preseason expectations, Diesel. But South Carolina, for me, again, you said it, they played well. That has to be the biggest win for Clemson this year.
I would argue that their best game, not looking specifically at wins, and you mentioned it there, LSU in week 1. I mean, yeah, you lost the game, but it was an absolutely electric environment. It was on national TV. You still felt like that coming out of that game that you are going to have a really good season.
Yeah.
I think the vibes were still pretty dang high at that point for the season. You still had this thought that Cade Klubnik still could be a monster because he had 230 in the air in that game. So I would say LSU probably their best performance. Ultimately, like at the time, it felt huge, but down the stretch, you look at it and say, "Oh, okay, we were in a tight game against a bad LSU
team. LSU team didn't make the playoff,
right?"
So no, I'm with you. Like I said, you still felt like, hey, and again, that's why I go back to what I just said. It's interesting to kind of look back and see now that things have panned out the way they have. At the time, you thought Garrett Nussmeier and LSU are going to be in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
They're going to make a deep run. That didn't happen. Clemson wasn't in the CFP. So I just think what we're learning in this new era, Diesel, of college football is that early in the season, like it does matter. Like that Texas-Ohio State game, that same night. You remember it was earlier in the day. We thought everything meant that game meant everything, right?
Yeah.
And Texas lost the game. They lost by what? It was a close game. Ohio State won, but it was very, very close. And we thought that was everything. I guess with this expanded playoff, and this has kind of been my argument the entire time, it does dilute some of those games a little bit in terms of their meaning, their significance. Like, for example, when the college football playoff was at 4 teams, you lose that first game of the year, and all of a sudden, Diesel, you're sitting there thinking, boy, are we going to even make the CFP? Yeah. Now you can lose the first game, and you're thinking, hey, we can still win out in the ACC, all cupcake conference, and find a way to get in. So I just think it's really interesting looking back on the season now that we know what we know. As much as hype, I mean, we were at ACC kickoff, you and I were. I mean, so much hype between Clemson and LSU, and they were both horrible.
Speaking of hype, Cole, there was a game that I watched in week 1 of the season for my App State Mountaineers that I thought, oh my God, we're so back. Dowell Loggins comes in with SEC experience, and he got a quarterback in here that it's going to be an absolute stud. It was against Charlotte, and Charlotte is perennially one of the worst football teams in college football. But
that
you
was
got
a Friday night game too.
Yeah,
remember that?
You got a new quarterback that came in from, I think he transferred in from LSU, and AJ Swan. He threw for 370 yards in that game. Had a stud running back that came in from Arkansas. He ran for over 100, and it felt like, oh wow, Dowell Loggins is the future of App State football, and things are gonna be great.
And if you remember, you and I talked about it that Friday. You were here in the studio. I was at the Burns game. We talked about that for a long time on the show that day because App State was just barely favored over Charlotte that night.
Yeah.
It was a Friday night game, and nobody could figure out why it was such a narrow spread. And App State took care of them. I mean, it's a big win, right?
34-11 was the final.
So, yeah, they covered. I think the spread was like 4 or 5, something.
It's close.
It was very small. So, unfortunately, it's same thing with Clemson. Early in the season just is not indicative anymore of how the rest of the season will go.
Yeah, it can turn on you really fast. And, Charlotte was in a deep hole all season long. I don't think they won a game until like week 6. So things were really rough. But at the time, it felt like that one was a harbinger of wow, this is going to be a special season. Dowell Loggins is going to be a special coach. Like I said, that SEC experience coming in, that's going to be a guy that's going to be just leaps and bounds better than other coaches in this conference. And oh boy, was I wrong.
You got to give it time. You got to give it time. Come on.
I don't want to.
Give Dowell time. Give these guys.
He's cooking in the portal, though.
And you know what? He's recruiting well. They're getting some good recruits. I mean, it's going to take some maybe. Look, you don't give them too much time because in this new modern era, you do what Kurt Signetti did. You can turn a roster around pretty quick, right? Oh, by the way, a little breaking news. How about this? We were just talking about this in the very last hour about Brian Daboll. The Titans have hired Brian Daboll as their new offensive coordinator.
Okay.
So you've got, by the way, you know who broke this news? Jelly Roll. No lie. It's literally. So you've got as head coach, former New York Jet, and as offensive coordinator, former New York Giant, Robert Saleh, Brian Daboll. That's interesting. Breaking news here in the last little bit.
Just a staff of mediocrity right there.
Really good stuff.
The bold choice, Cotton.
Did we do your Panthers yet?
Well, we talked about them a little bit. Yeah, we talked about them with the playoff win over Dallas. And
so the Dallas wins number one for you as a fan?
Number one.
You had to pick one.
No, I would probably say the 30-0 win over the Falcons. Because you felt like with that 30-0 win, that was in week 3, by the way.
Yeah.
All right, the first game against Jacksonville, ooh, that was tough, 26-10. Second week on the road at the Cardinals. Okay, well, you're starting off with 2 straight road games. That's not easy. And then, bam, you punch the Falcons in the mouth, 30-0. And at the time, we didn't know how bad the Falcons were going to be this year. And it just felt like, oh, wow, we're back. All right, things are good. And to me, that would have been the high water mark of the season.
How about Green Bay, though?
Green Bay, yeah, winning at Green Bay.
Diesel, you went to Lambeau.
Wasn't that the game though? Didn't Green Bay commit multiple turnovers? Jordan Love had an interception in that ball game.
It doesn't matter. Y'all won. You won the game. By the way, a little more breaking news. This comes from ESPN. Bill Belichick, the 8-time Super Bowl winning coach, is not a first ballot Hall of Famer.
What?
This round. So keep trying, Bill. I would say
I'm going to change my answer. It's the win against the Rams. The win against the Rams, 31-28. Yeah, you needed Matt Stafford having
but you know what?
Terrible game.
I'll say this as a Panthers fan. What did you finish the season? 8-10.
Yep.
3-3 in the division. You had a really good year compared to what your expectations were, Diesel. So I like the Rams. I like the Rams pick from you. I still think going to Lambeau, that means a lot, man. It's hard to go to Lambeau and win. It did. And a low-scoring game, too, 16-13, your deal. And that's a game, Diesel, you came off the week 4 where you got blown out by Buffalo, right? So it was a good season.
It's also hard not to choose the overtime win
Falcons
on the road in Atlanta where Bryce threw for 448.
Yeah. There's a lot of good. The wins were good. Like the losses were obviously blowout losses this year, but when the Panthers did win, man,
as a Panthers fan, you'll take any of that you can get.
No doubt. Hey, we mentioned this yesterday, Diesel, at the end of the show. Clemson's football schedule was released. I want to get Clemson fans' thoughts on that. We had a lot of interaction on our Facebook page with Clemson fans predicting, South Carolina fans taking shots. But I want to know which games, let's go through the schedule since it was released yesterday, Diesel. Which games will Clemson be favored in 2026? We want to hear from you on that as well. Next, right here on the Fan Update. games will Clemson be favored in? That is the question. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. So good to be with you. By the way, Spartanburg County and Greenville County are closed. Their schools are closed again on Wednesday, and it will be an e-learning day for students. Diesel, when you and I were in school, I don't recall having e-learning. We were just out. So I think now you actually have to turn in assignments still. I don't know how that works.
Heck? I mean, I guess if you're going to be willing to call school for more reasons,
Yeah.
you know, like you get more than 3 snowflakes, or it's going to be really hot today, or it's going to be really cold today, or
Yes.
the principal's just not feeling it. They call school now. I guess you got to do e-learning, but maybe they built up the infrastructure to be able to do it during COVID.
E-learning is what it is. So if you have any other news, pass it along. We'll share it with the Tolos out there, Spartanburg, Greenville, Anderson, wherever you may be listening on the Odyssey app, iHeartRadio app, and the TuneIn app as well. Diesel, I posted on the Fan Upstate Facebook page Clemson's schedule last night. About 6 o'clock yesterday is when you and I officially talked about the unveiling of the schedule. And 68 comments later, the Tolos are going at it on Facebook. So I want to get to the comments because there are some pretty funny comments on the Facebook page, as you can imagine.
What are you saying? People don't agree on the internet?
No.
Crazy.
Not on the internet, not on Facebook. And there are some pretty good predictions. We'll get to those predictions. We'll get to the comments. But first, before we get to the comments, let's play a game called Will Clemson Be Favored? Now, if you and I were playing this game 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years ago, it would be a pretty boring game because Clemson would be favored in just about every game they played, right?
Yep.
However, not the case. Not the case now. As Clemson struggled the past few years, they're just a shell of what they used to be when they were winning national championships. I know they won a conference championship 2 seasons ago, but hippie hooray! That's a conference. That's ACC championship. That's what I want to know. How many games will they be favored in? If you're a Clemson fan, play along with us at 844-326-3663. The Joy Law Firm text line is open. There are 78 Tolos watching the show right now on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Let's start on the 5th day, Diesel, of September. Clemson gets on a nice airplane and heads west toward Baton Rouge. Clemson will be at LSU on the first weekend in college football, September 5th. Do you think Clemson will be favored at LSU against Lane Kiffin?
No. Clemson, if I had to predict opening line, Clemson will be I'm going to go 8.5 point dog.
That's similar. That's pretty close to what I was thinking there.
It seems wrong to say they'd be a 2 touchdown dog. That's a lot of points.
Lane Kiffin effect.
Yep.
He's been hot and heavy in the portal, Diesel.
Yep.
Been really good.
Dabo hasn't been as hot and heavy in the portal. Christopher Vizina.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Who's starting? Who's starting the quarterback? Is it
I
going
would
to be
assume-
Christopher Vizina? Is it going to
Yeah.
be Chris Denson? I think that matters.
Sam Levitt probably starting at LSU.
Yeah.
Got to assume.
Wesley on the stream says yes. I don't think so, Wesley. I don't think – maybe a lot of them, but not for LSU. Like Christopher – and we'll get into this conversation in the next 7 months, Diesel, leading up to football season. But do Clemson fans have a different feeling on this game if they go into Tiger Stadium with Christopher Vizina at quarterback compared to if it's Chris Denson starting at quarterback? We saw some flash and promise from Denson this past season. A lot more athletic, can use his legs. Now you have Chad Morris as offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Dabo Sweeney said he likes the quarterback room. In fact, a lot. So I would say I'm going to be in the same ballpark as you. Guessing the opening line. 7 months away is tough. But they do pretty much have their roster, right? You said 8.5? Yeah, I'll say 7.5.
Okay.
Which is maybe a little conservative. 7.5, 8.5. I can't see it being more than 8.5.
Yeah, 8.5 is a big spread.
That's a big spread. Tom Allen defense.
Chad Morris offense.
Without Luke Farrelly.
Yeah. We can answer this question at the end, Cole, or we can save this for another segment. At what point during the season does Chris Denson start?
Yeah, I mean,
it could be not at all.
Yeah. No, I
we
mean,
have that conversation.
It's a realistic conversation, and I think what's interesting about it is I think there's a large contingent of Clemson fans out there that would like to see Chris Denson get a crack at it. I really do. Coop and Greer text in at 844-FAN-PHONE and says, Clemson favored in every game this year.
Have you learned nothing, Coop and Greer?
Coop and Greer. Come on now. You know better than that. Against LSU, Lane Giffen, at Tiger State, in Death Valley, at night, you're telling me that Clemson's going to be favored in that game. There is
Cleveland Browns wouldn't be favored against LSU at night.
There is zero chance Clemson is favored in the opening line in that game. Now, does Sam Leavitt go down? I'm just saying, there's no chance. All right. The next week, Clemson hosts Georgia Southern. I don't even know if there will be a spread on that game.
Oh, well, there will be. It's an FBS matchup.
Will there be?
Yeah, it's an FBS matchup.
Okay, what do you think the spread will be?
Clemson will be favored by 17.5.
Oh, I think it'll be more than that.
Really? I mean, Georgia Southern wasn't bad this year. They made a bowl game.
Okay,
and again, it's still Chris Vizina.
Yeah, I'll go. You said, okay, you know what? I'll sidle with you. I'll sidle with you. I'll go 17.5. I like that.
All this is contingent, of course, on how they play week one against LSU. That can certainly just step right up and be a game changer.
No, I'll go 17.5. I like that. All right, the next week, Diesel.
Coop and Greer says, sorry, my wife got my phone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good excuse. The very next week, Diesel Clemson will host North Carolina. North Carolina was horrible this past year, and Clemson beat the brakes off of them, right? I think North Carolina and Bill Belichick will be better. I do, because, number one, it's hard to be worse than what they were. They were really bad. Number two, I think they do have more stability in the program. There was a lot of newness last year in Chapel Hill. But Clemson's still, I think, going to be – and again, you said it, depending on what happens in those first 2 weeks, Clemson will be favored 100%. Right? Do we agree on that?
100%.
But what will the spread be? If I had a guess, I would say 6.5.
Wow. I'm going bigger than that.
Are you?
9.5.
Okay. I like that. Maybe I'll meet in the middle with you there. All right. The very next week, and this is where things kind of get interesting in terms of what the spread looks like. Clemson will go to Cal, making the road trip across the country to the West Coast in an Atlantic Coast Conference game, which makes no sense. But at Cal, on the count of three, will Clemson be favored? 1, 2, 3. Yes, they will be favored. We agree on that. Cal's interesting. They just don't get talked about a lot, even though they're in the ACC. They're, 2,000 miles away? So we don't know.
Yeah.
Touchdown and a half here?
I was
6, 7, 8.
Go smaller than that. I was going to go Clemson favored by 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean.
On the road.
On the road. Second road test for Clemson and the starter. Long way to travel. And are we going to have any faith? I don't have a whole lot of faith in this Clemson team next year.
Not right now. I mean, not right now. So you and I both agree that Clemson will not be favored at LSU. And then we have them 3 games in a row being favored over Georgia Southern, North Carolina, at Cal. Here's where it really gets fun. The very next week, they fly back home and they host the Miami Hurricanes, who just played in the national championship and today just hosted a guy who, by the way, beat Clemson last year in Darian Mensah. This is going to be fun here. On the count of 3, will Clemson be favored at home against the Miami Hurricanes on the count of 3? 1, 2, 3. No. Okay. Same page.
No.
But I think it's close spread. I think it's a close spread.
Really?
Yeah. It being at home is going to give them a few points, right? I think they'll get 3 points for that. Now it's also contingent on how Miami starts the season, right? In their first 4 games of the year.
They lost some big pieces.
They did.
Obviously.
They did. But Darian Mensah being a quarterback, that's big because that defense, if the defense may not be as good as they were this year, but if the defense is a shell of what they were, they'll still be pretty good.
Malachi Toney's still going to be around.
That was a really good defense.
Losing a lot. They lose Reuben Bain and the other defensive end on the other side. I forget his name off the top of my head, but I know they replaced them with an elite portal pickup. This Miami team is going to be an old football team. I think they're going to be really good again
Just
next
so
year.
you know, before they play Clemson, they play Stanford. I don't recognize that logo. Florida Atlantic. Sorry, it took me a minute on their
Rattlers.
logo. The Rattlers.
Yeah.
Wake Forest.
Really testing themselves.
And Central Michigan.
Dear God.
Their schedule is
Might as well have
really
4
bad.
bye weeks before playing Clemson. Who do they play after that? Do they play anybody in conference this year?
Clemson, Florida State, Pitt, North Carolina, more wins, Notre Dame. So there's your one good game. And then listen, Duke, Virginia Tech, and Boston. That's a weak schedule. That is an incredibly weak schedule.
I think VT is going to be pretty good this year.
I think they'll be okay. Miami will be better,
improved.
though.
Oh, yeah. They'll be better. I mean, who
That's
else are
a
they
weak
going to
schedule.
play in conferences better than them?
I know.
Nobody, really.
SMU, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a weak schedule. So we both say that Clemson will be an underdog at home to Miami, but by how many?
What was your spread? I think you gave it.
I'll go 4.5 in
4.5
favor
point
of the Hurricanes is what I predict it to be.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 7.
Oh wow, that's
7-point dogs, so they'll get the 3 for at home. That means
that's a lot.
The Hurricanes are going to be 10 points better.
That's a lot of points. We'll see, though. Could be right. Then they have a bye week the next week. They play Charleston Southern the week after that. And, again, we talked about 17.5 for Georgia Southern. Charleston Southern will be
24.5.
It'll
be a big spread. 24.5.
Really, really big. The next week, they host Virginia Tech. Will Clemson be favored, Diesel?
Yes.
Yes, by how many?
2.5.
Ooh.
2.5.
Oh.
I have high hopes for this James Franklin-led Virginia Tech program. Might take him a little time, but
now
he brought over so many dudes from Penn State.
No, he did. They're going to be good. They're going to be good. Let me ask you this, though. What if I told you just said that Clemson will be favored in that game at home? What if I told you I can tell you for sure Clemson's a 2-loss team to LSU and Miami? Does that change your mind?
No.
Okay.
No, I think there's still just more continuity and more, experience on the Clemson sideline, I think. So I'd still say Clemson's favored in that game, favored by 3.5.
I'd say 2.5, 3. Yeah. I think it's close spread as well. The next week they go to Florida State. Are they favored on the road at Florida State?
If they're a 2-loss team at that point, yes.
You think they're favored?
Yes.
I think it's close, though.
1.5.
I was going to say really, really close. I think that could be, depending on how the season goes, I think you could see, it wouldn't surprise me to see Florida State and the world favored at home. At Syracuse the next week, I do believe they will be favored there. You as well?
Favored touchdown, maybe 7.5, 8.5.
The next week, they host Georgia Tech.
Favored,
without Haynes King.
Favored, but not by much. Favored by a field goal. Yeah, something like that. 3.5, 4.
Yeah, I like that. The next week, they go to Durham, a Darian Mensah Duke Blue Devils team.
Yeah, but they can't get past Duke for some reason. They're just Duke is a bugaboo. Now, they'll be favored against Duke 5.5.
Yeah, I like it. Less than a touchdown, maybe close to a touchdown, depending on what Duke does. I could see it getting up in a world at 6.5, though, as well. And then to wrap things up, Diesel, Clemson on November the 28th, the day after or the Saturday after Thanksgiving, will host South Carolina. Needing a big season is Shane Beamer and company. Obviously, that game being the last game, the spread will hinge on what both teams have done, thus far. But on the count of 3, one more time, yes or no, will Clemson be favored at home versus South Carolina? 1, 2, 3.
No.
Yes. Oh, we finally
disagree.
Finally, you say no.
No.
Now, if the Gamecocks have a really good season, I'll be on your side.
Sure. I think it'll be fairly close. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens with Lenore Sellers coming back. We'll see what happens with an all-new offensive line, all-new running back, all new everything, right? It's
everything.
Everything has been changed.
Except
it's got to be better than it it last year. It can't get worse.
Some of the comments on here are pretty good. Tim, One of the Tolos says 6-7 wins. I mean, he's right, though.
Is that Madcraft with one
No.
of his side accounts?
Madcraft he didn't know.
Yeah, I liked one of his posts earlier today on Twitter just to be like, hey, nudge, nudge, come back, man.
He won't do it.
He's too proud.
He won't do it. Let's see. Trevor says 6-6. Ugh.
6-6 as far as favored or 6-6 record?
Record. Chad says I could see 9-3. Russell says I was thinking 4-8.
So you have to squint to see 9-3 because I don't see 9-3. I see 8-4, maybe 7-5.
Michael says what an easy schedule. Jonathan says I'd guess 6 to 7 wins. Do we even know who the quarterback is? Brandon says 5 to 7 best. Victor says 6-6. Maurice says back to the playoffs, boys. Dewey, I don't know if this is the same Dewey or a different Dewey, says 12-0.
Did he say, oh?
It does sound like something Dewey would say 12-0.
But Dewey's a South Carolina fan. Why would Dewey say 12-0?
And Dewey hadn't called the show for 2 days straight now. I wonder if he's still alive. Tim says 16-0. How about that? Let's see here. A couple more for you real quick. Steven says 8-4. Charlie goes 6-6. Jimmy says, how brutal of a schedule. I love that.
Hey, Clemson needs this schedule. God, I mean, like you lose it, you lose at LSU. There's no shame in that one.
No.
But you need this schedule when you're a down program.
Shaquita says 7-5. Wayne says 6-6. David says 6-6. Jeff says 6-6. Justin says 3-9. Todd says 7-5. Christopher says 11-1. Eric says 4-8. TRT says 3-9. Bradley says I see 5-7. Josh says 10-2. Doug 8-4. And just, some good comments here. One, Brandon says, y'all Clemson fans are delusional. Think you're going to be back in the playoff picture? You're not even ranked? Good luck with that. And they are not, by the way, in the early top 25. So we'll see, but that is the Clemson schedule. That is what Diesel and I think in terms of the spread and if Clemson will be favored or not.
It's going to be interesting to see, Cole. Clemson needs it. Another question is, will Shane Beamer still be the head coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks when they play Clemson?
I say yes.
You think he'll get the whole season regardless?
Yeah, I think they have a good year. I think they have a better year.
Okay.
Better year.
Things have to get better.
Can't be worse than 4.
Interesting. When we come back, Cole, there are some fascinating college basketball matchups tonight. It's time for our Tolos to start thinking in terms of college basketball as well. Why this matchup is going to be the must-watch one, I'll tell you next.
844-326-3663. That's 844-FAN-PHONE. This is Wire to Wire with Cole, Bryson, and Diesel on the Fan Upstate.
Cole, there are some big basketball games on tonight in college. Of course, you've got a pretty good Virginia, number 17, on the road at an 11-9 Notre Dame team. Rocco Miller brought this up. George Washington on the road at number 21, St. Louis. Missouri, Alabama set up.
He said
to be
they're
a pretty good basketball
Cinderella
game.
sleeper, right? St. Louis?
He did. That'd
be interesting.
They only lost one game when he set on a crazy finish, but none looks bigger right now, Cole, than number 5, 20-0 Nebraska on the road at Michigan, 18-1. Number 5 versus number 3, a tale of two very different basketball teams. Nebraska kind of built similar to the way Clemson is. It's play really good defense and be solid enough in scoring to get you past some of the teams that can really put up the points. But Michigan, the exact opposite. They are a run and gun, put up 85, 90 points a night. That's going to be a huge ball game tonight at 7 o'clock.
And Nebraska, correct me if I'm wrong, you say they were undefeated?
Correct.
20-0.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to keep their undefeated season alive. These number 1 seeds, Rocco Miller talked about that earlier as well. They'll start to kind of solidify themselves, here in the next few weeks. Diesel, this is the first 10-0 Big Ten start for Nebraska since 1965. Think about that. A while. Nebraska's a really good team.
They were in the Big 10 in 65? Or Big 12? Would they have been Big 12 at the time?
Maybe. The conference.
Interesting.
10-0. Yeah. And how big of a win it'd be for Michigan at home against an unbeat team. You talked about the resume, and Michigan's offense is really good. They lead the conference. They lead the Big 10 in scoring and efficiency right now, Diesel. So Michigan, what's interesting about this game tonight? Look at the spread on it.
11.5.
What are we missing? A number 3 versus a number 5.
They're just built different.
But 11 points?
Yeah.
Would you take Michigan to win by? I mean, two good teams. Undefeated Nebraska?
I think skipping ahead, Nebraska loses but covers because this Nebraska team, they score a lot too. They're an 81 point a night kind of team, but Michigan is a 92 point kind of team.
Yeah.
Michigan can really flat out score. The difference, and Nebraska's defense pretty good. Nebraska's not a bad defense. Michigan has been blowing teams out by 25-9 all season.
No, Michigan's good. They rebound the ball really, really well. Danny Wolf's been terrific. Trey Donaldson, they're really good across the board. And you talked about what their average looks like compared to Nebraska's, but I think, Nebraska's going to have to hit some deep shots tonight. You talk about that scoring offensively. Michigan will control the paint. I think they have out-rebounded just about every team they've played this year, and they're a really good team from shooting outside. They have solid contribution off the bench. I just don't know if I would be comfortable taking 11.5 points. That feels like a lot. It just feels like it.
This is going to have to be a slow Michigan down and frustrate them all night and essentially be in can't miss territory for your 3-point shooters. You got to have a team 3-point shooting percentage of 35% in this game. If you want to hang with them, and then you got to be able to absolutely shut them down, get their bigs in foul territory early so that they are less effective. That's the only way.
That Virginia-Notre Dame game's interesting. Notre Dame's not good. Virginia's playing really good basketball right now. I think they'll win that game. The spread's 9.5. I don't know if they'll cover. I'll tell you my lock of the night, though. My lock of the night's Arkansas minus 3.5. I know it's on the road at Oklahoma, but Oklahoma's not good, Diesel. They're about like in South Carolina purgatory mode, 11-9 on the season, 1-6 in the SEC. Again, that game is in Norman, but for John Calipari's team to only be favored by 3.5 points, you talk about an Arkansas team that's 5-2 in SEC play, right? They had a really strong non-conference start, big wins over Michigan State. I like Arkansas a lot. I think what they've done is going to be good. Darius Acuff, the freshman guard's phenomenal. He's their team's leader on offense. He scored 31 against LSU. He's been very efficient for them. I just don't know. That spread really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I know they were not good in that loss to Auburn, but I think when you look at this game tonight, I think if you wanted a lock, I think Arkansas will win by more than 3.5 on the road.
I could see Oklahoma keeping this game real close and then Arkansas pulling away in the last 5 or 6 minutes. I mean, they're just a little bit better across the board at just about every category.
Kentucky Vandy will be good tonight too, by the way. Kentucky's unranked, but they're 5-2 in the SEC. They're on that bubble, right, of being ranked. Vandy's number 18, 17-3 overall. That could be a good game. Vandy's favored by 6.5 at home. So it'll be a good night.
How about Miami of Ohio off to a 20-0 start? That's huge. Miami of Ohio. Who have they beat, by the way?
You don't think they have
we'll come to you here in just a second. I'm going to look at their full schedule and see who they have wins over. Let's see. They got do they have any wins over any ranked teams so far? No, they don't.
Dewey, we will get to you in the very next segment. Hold through the break. We're coming to you, Dewey. We also have an audio blitz, that and a lot more right here on the Fan Upstate.
No safety deep. Oh, here he goes. He can try to beat him with his legs. As Ellis runs after him, and May got there. Drake May outraces the defender, and the Patriots now only need to fall on it, kneel on it, and they can.
How about a good old-fashioned audio blitz for you on this Tolo Tuesday? Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. We're going to throw some sports audio at you in this very segment and react to it. That's what we do. You're more than welcome to get in on the conversation, though. Phone lines are open, 844-326-3663. The Joey Law Firm text line is also open at the same number, 844-326-3663. Let's start, though, before we get to the audio, Diesel, with the one, the only, the first time he's called the show since Thursday of last week. And, yeah, I've been keeping count, Dewey. The one and only Dewey. What's up? Our daily Dewey, I guess.
Oh, I got under the weather yesterday. But I'm very disappointed about how this, well, just like I expected, so I shouldn't be disappointed. I'm just going to say I told you so. But anyways, y'all talk about the NIL. The NIL don't ruin college sports. College football, they don't even go to class no more. It should be just called football, not college, because they're not really in college. They're just little frat boys throwing a football, making millions of dollars like Carson Beck. Yes, Matt Kraft, I'm attacking Carson Beck.
Dewey, how are you under the weather? How are you under the weather, Dewey, if there was no weather?
Well, I had a stomach bug, and I was throwing up yesterday.
That's called alcohol abuse. That's called hangover, Dewey.
Well, no, actually, I didn't drink yesterday. Oh. I woke up, and I just threw up all day. It was terrible.
Great. Yeah, thanks for telling us that. Anything else?
But anyways, like I said, Carson Beck sucks. Mad Kraft, I don't know where you're at. You need to come out your little hideaway, or I bet you're watching the political radio station. That's what you're watching.
Listening, not watching.
Others listening. We'll probably watch too. But anyways, as far as the snow business, we all know it's not going to snow Saturday. It's not going to snow Sunday. So please leave Ace Hardware alone. Leave Lowe's alone. Leave Ingles alone this weekend.
No, remember, Melissa said these days like this are great for Ingles. I mean, they made a lot of money. They made so much money. Dewey, did you return your generator or did you keep it?
I didn't get a generator.
Oh,
I knew better.
I didn't either. I'm with you. I'm Team Dewey.
Is it because you're not allowed to play with power equipment?
Well, no, because I knew Chris Justice was lying. Even Kendra Kent got on the high horse and she started lying. They're all liars. So I got to figure out who needs to get fired. And I might even consult a lawyer over this.
Ooh.
I don't know.
Hey, by the way, just so you know, Dewey, as of right now on the official weatherchannel.com app, it's showing Saturday, a high of 28, low of 15. Saturday, January 31st, watching a potential winter storm, periods of light snow, high 28, winds northeast at 10 to 15 miles an hour, chance of snow 70%, snow accumulating 1 to 3 inches.
Well, I guarantee you read this nonsense tomorrow or Friday, it's going to say mostly sunny, high 28. Oh.
Thanks, Dewey. He's fed up, Diesel.
Yeah.
He's fed up with it.
What is Dewey happy about? Is he happy that the weather was
not as bad as
not as bad, which means he's right about Chris Justice, or is he like what is he happy about?
That's a great $1 million question. What is Dewey happy about? I don't know that we can answer that. But
would he rather be right or be warm and have his power on?
All kidding aside, they are calling for a little bit of snow. I've seen it looks like snow and not ice, which is a good thing.
We'll take it.
I don't mind the snow at all. I mean,
you like to drive in the snow, don't you?
It's fun.
It's so much fun.
It is. It's
I mean, it's dangerous. Don't do it, people.
Yeah, that's right. As long as there's no ice on top, you got to know how to drive. You got to drive slow. Take your time where you're going, but we'll see. I mean, I would like to. Don't get me wrong. On this 27th day of January, I am already team summer. I'm ready for the warm weather. I'm ready for lake days. Don't get me twisted on that. But I will tell you, I would like to see some snow. I did not see any snow last weekend. I want to see some puffy flurries this weekend fall from the sky. And a little accumulation would be nice too.
Okay, Pablo Escobar.
Yeah.
You see some puffy white falling?
Sorry. Let's hear what Brad Brunell said. He was asked a question about this win streak they have in the ACC. Here's what he said.
You guys have won 12 straight road ACC games dating back to last season, the fourth longest in conference history. When you're presented with that stat, how does that kind of resonate with you?
Yeah, obviously really proud of it. That's really hard to do. It's a product of having a lot of really good players and having staff that do a good job in our prep and our guys embracing these kinds of games away from home and focusing on our process and what it takes to win and being prepared. And then, having guys that can make plays at the end of games. I think that's a big part of all this too, is you get on the road and you get a game that'll last, 4-6 minutes. And then can your players make enough plays to win the game? That's usually how it works. And we've been fortunate the last couple of years to have some teams that have players that can do that.
That's a big part of it, man. Having that chemistry that he talked about. I think that was a great question, by the way, as well. I believe it's Darian Carter of the Greenville News. But that's an impressive, we mentioned this yesterday, that is a very, very impressive streak, what Clemson and Brownell has done.
Yeah, it's not easy to do. Congratulations to Brad. Keep it up.
Let's go to Tom Brady. I pulled this clip because over the weekend, Diesel, I listened to the commentators a lot. I like learning about the game. I thought Tom Brady was in his bag on Sunday as far as his color commentary goes. And this was a unique clip. What a receiver reminded him of. Here was what Tom Brady said.
So graceful with his body control. He's like an ice skater out there when I see him run routes. He glides. His shoulder plane never dips. It's always the same height. A lot of receivers, when they run, if they're speeding up or stopping, their shoulder planes will rise or fall.
So I want to start that over. You talk about listening and watching a broadcast and wanting to learn about the game. Talking about Jackson Smith and Jigba there. Mm-hmm. This audio, again, Tolo's out there that didn't catch it the first time. You're talking about the best ever, the GOAT, Diesel, the greatest ever that we've seen, explaining small details about the game. I just can't get enough of this right here.
So graceful with his body control. He's like an ice skater out there when I see him run routes. He glides. His shoulder plane never dips. It's always the same height. A lot of receivers, when they run, if they're speeding up or stopping, their shoulder planes will rise or fall. He maintains the same shoulder plane when he runs his route. It's really hard for any defensive back to get a beat on what he's doing.
He's talking about Jackson Smith and Jigba, by the way.
I've noticed that a couple different times. You see the running backs, especially once they break through that first level of the defensive line, they look like they're floating. They don't dip, they don't fall, they don't roll their shoulders as they're running. You compare that the opposite of guys like Barry Sanders back in the day. They used to really roll those shoulders and used to have a lot of body motion.
Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think, is at the best right now when it comes to what he's doing in the NFL. He's so smooth. He's an elite route runner. And it just so happened that the very next play, this was at the end of the first half, Brady calling the game. Guess what? He's talking about JSN. What happens in the very next play? Well, here you go.
It's really hard for any defensive back to get a beat on what he's doing.
Darnold looking at him again. Some pressure, though. Hit as he throws. Man open. Guess who? Smith and Jigba. Touchdown, Seattle.
That guy's phenomenal, man. If you aren't watching what Jackson Smith and Jigba has done, if you're not watching what he's doing, you're missing out. He is having an extraordinary season. And Diesel, we talked about this yesterday a little bit, and we'll talk about it as the 2 weeks continue to lapse. But Jackson Smith and Jigba is one of the main reasons I'm picking the Seahawks to beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. This guy's just too good right now. I love what he's doing.
Yeah, he's averaging 120 yards per game, 1,700 on the season. The dude is an absolute monster.
All right, this one's fun. Have you heard about the viral substation theory? in San Francisco.
I have.
Okay.
I have heard this.
So this is interesting, and I want to know what you think, what the Tolos think. John Lynch, the general manager, discussed this, and I'll have the audio for you. But there's a theory going out there, Diesel, that I think's fascinating. There is a substation, a power electrical substation theory tied to Levi Stadium and the San Francisco 49ers. Here's what we'll get to, if we believe it's true, if we believe there's any, truth to this. Here's what general manager John Lynch said when he was asked about it yesterday in the end of season presser.
I'll tell you, Eric, because it deals with allegedly, the health and safety of our players, I think you have to look into everything. And so our guys we've been reaching out to anyone and everyone to see, does a study exist other than a guy sticking an apparatus underneath a fence and coming up with a number that I have no idea what that means. That's what we know exists. We've heard that debunked. So yes, we will look into it. We have, the health and safety of our players is of the utmost priority. We pour into it. Our ownership, Jed, tremendous in terms of resources, and we'll always be cognizant of things. I know that a lot of games have been won at this facility, since it opened, but yeah, we aren't going to turn a blind eye. We'll look into everything.
So Diesel, it was yet another very injury-plagued season for San Francisco. And for those that have never heard about this before, there's a theory that chronic EMF exposure from an electrical substation could cause the 49ers epidemic of tendon ruptures. That's where we are.
Raptures or ruptures?
Ruptures, sorry, not
okay,
raptures.
Because if they're just suddenly flying up into
out,
the sky,
we're in trouble.
That's a real bad problem.
A really bad problem. Tendon ruptures. Are you buying it? Is there any truth to this?
No, but are we surprised that you build in a substandard area next to a crappy substation? There's all kinds of radiation coming off those substations. I don't know that it's causing tendon ruptures. I think there's a possibility. Look, I'm no electrician. I don't know anything about electricity at all other than don't touch it because it's going to kill you. I certainly would not want to live next to a power station. Would you?
No, I wouldn't, but is it going to cause tendon ruptures?
Tendon ruptures. I mean, if it caused brain tumors, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. People used to believe that talking on your cell phone too much caused brain tumors.
Near the microwave, right?
Listening to Wire to Wire.
What? Yeah, no kidding. Now, what's interesting is they've been practicing at this same facility since the late 80s.
Yep.
It wasn't an issue back then. Now, I know this new facility was built in 2012. So the Silicon Valley Power Mission Substation did not get built, and I think this is the one being referenced, until 2014. Again, I'm in the same boat you are. I don't know a lot about chronic EMF exposure and how it can, cause tendon ruptures, but the fact that we're asking the general manager this, I can't believe this. I mean, you talk about excuses. This is fascinating, but it's an excuse. That's all it is.
I am on the National Laboratory of Medicine website here, and I'm trying to find anything about EMFs. It says the increased using of mobile phones may have a number of psychological and physiological effects on human health. It can cause nervous system problems, cognitive performance problems, nothing specifically about Achilles ruptures.
Well, what they're saying, Diesel, is people online talking about it are saying that those EMF signals, whatever they're called, are somehow weakening players' tendons and connective tissues, making them more prone to tendon ruptures and soft tissue injuries like an Achilles tear, like an ACL. So it's all over social media. 49ers players have talked about it, have joked about it. I can't believe John Lynch was asked about it, but he did say, you heard the audio, we're going to look into everything. I think for the most part, medical professionals, Diesel out there would probably dismiss it. I would imagine.
Yeah, they do site studies for all kinds of things. Maybe it's the fact that they built like a weird asymmetrical stadium, Cole. And when you walk in there, you kind of start to lean to the left for some reason. It's because you got these huge stands up on the right. You got these small stands on the left. It's kind of like, honestly, is this wrong to say? It looks like James Madison's football stadium, where they have this huge upper deck on one side. They got nothing on the other side. It just looks weird. I think it messes with your eyes, and it makes you step more often, harder on one side than you do on the other side, gradually weakening your tendons over the time.
That's a fun thought, though. It's just fun talk.
Or it's in San Francisco, there's too many women, Cole, because we learned from Rocky that women weaken the legs.
Yeah. Let's hear a little bit from Nate Oates, who's been in the media a lot lately.
Well, the system's clearly broken, and I'm all for figuring out a way to fix it. But since the NCAA has already allowed professionals to play virtually every team we've played this year or will play as a former professional player on their roster, you tell me how I'm supposed to tell Charles and the team that we're not going to support them when he's been deemed legally eligible to play. First of all, the system's clearly broken.
The system's clearly broken. I think he brings up an interesting point.
He could have just full stopped right there. The system is broken.
Yeah, well,
Coach, we
agree.
know.
We agree with
right.
Everybody's going to agree with you on that. But it is interesting that he brings up the fact that he thinks other people are doing it. Not other people are doing it, that he knows that other professional players are on those rosters he's playing against. So it's a weird situation.
I don't understand how you take that stance. How do you take the stance of, I know the system is broken, and I know that guys that have signed professional contracts are playing on my roster and other rosters, but I still think we should be allowed to do it because a judge who's an Alabama booster says it's okay.
Well,
get out of here.
Win. It's all about winning.
It's all about winning. It's incredibly transparently selfish.
Yeah. Win at all costs, like I said yesterday. Mike Vrabel on what he wants his players to experience in this game.
I do this for the players. I've been in their position. I've been there. And it's amazing. And I want other people to feel that feeling. And it's for our families who make a lot of sacrifices and the excitement and the joy that they have. Trust me, I'm fine. Like I'll be okay. I do this for the players to be able to experience this with their families, and our coaches to be able to experience it with their families.
I don't know how you just don't pull for that guy. Like, love it. They were 4-13. They were terrible the last 2 years. Vrabel comes in. They're in the Super Bowl, his first. I mean, it's an awesome story. He played for a Super Bowl in New England. He's been there. He won one. He knows what it takes. He's an all-in kind of guy. We talked about this yesterday. You said you were leaning Patriots. I said I was leaning Seahawks. If I asked you who you were pulling for, who are you rooting for, who would you say?
Seahawks.
See, I'm going opposite. I'm rooting for the Patriots.
Yeah,
I think Seattle wins, but I'm rooting for Drake May. I like Drake May.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for Mike Vrabel.
Have you rushed out to rent the movie Warriors after?
Nah, I've seen it.
You've seen the?
Yeah,
you've
I've
seen Warriors?
Yeah, oh yeah.
No way.
Yeah, believe it or
that
not.
shocks me.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
it's a great movie.
Yeah.
I feel like that one's ripe for a remake, even though I don't want to see it remade because like all modern remakes suck.
Yeah.
It feels like Warriors remake could be so good because let's be real, that movie was not great, but that's what makes it great. Like it was a really well-made B movie at the time.
How about Tessa Johnson? She had a big game for South Carolina this past weekend. It's always fun to see her in that zone.
Being sped up. Tessa Johnson stops and pops. Little bank shot. All right.
A really nice rebound for South Carolina after that Oklahoma loss to beat Vandy the way they did. Vandy was undefeated. That game was never close. A big win there, Diesel. And before we run to the next segment, I am going to leave you with the Dabo Swinney audio or some of the audio that we played yesterday, but we've got Rocco Miller next, right? To talk a little college basketball.
Yes,
real quick. Let's see. I'm sorry. I did miss these text messages before we get to Rocco. Big Bruiser says, last week y'all were saying y'all don't know how good of a coach Stefanski is, but everyone seems to forget he won Coach of the Year twice in Cleveland. I don't agree with the way his quarterback situation was handled. We'll see. We'll see what he does in Atlanta. Trey in Kentucky gets in and says, does the Oconee does his text of the day right? Maybe the text of the week. Trey says, does the Oconee power situation explain Clemson the last couple of years?
Hey,
that's good, man.
It's just because people aren't positive enough and people aren't praying enough, Cole.
That's good. That according to Madcraft, good stuff.
When we come back, let's talk some college basketball with Rocco Miller, the owner of Bracketeer.org.
Upstate.
Well, a lot of the men's basketball teams in our immediate area taking a bit of a break with the winter storm that just made its way through. Talking all things college basketball with Rocco Miller, bracketeer.org. Rocco, generally speaking, how do teams react to extended breaks like this that are sort of unexpected mid-season? And who do you like that always tends to take maximum advantage of breaks like this in the middle of the season?
Yeah, good question. Great to be back with you guys this week. I would say, in general, teams don't mind it because at this point in the year, nobody's 100% healthy. There's sore ankles, sore knees, a lot of sore parts of the body. So getting a few extra days of rest and recovery and preparation isn't necessarily a bad thing at most places. There's also just different things that you might want to install offensively, defensively, that you just don't have time to do if you're in a Thursday, Saturday, like mid-major type of league. Even in the bigger leagues where you play Wednesday, Saturday, or Tuesday, Saturday, it can be tough with travel to try to shake things up too much schematically. So this is an opportunity to not only recover and rest, but also tighten up some of your rotations and scheme stuff if necessary. So I don't think a lot of coaches mind it. In fact, they're embracing it. I think the other thing too is you got to prepare for when the makeup games might be, if that's a thing. So that way, if you do have a 3-game week in a week, you got to be ready to roll with that. So I know they won't like it as much when they have to play that many games in a row, but I think for now they're okay with it.
Rocco Miller, Cole here. I appreciate you hopping on with us as always, man. Let me ask you this. Convince me otherwise. I watched Duke Louisville last night, and I know Arizona won big over BYU. Totally get it. They're number one. They're undefeated. They're a really good team. But Duke, to me, looks like the best team in college basketball right now. Convince me otherwise.
It's tough to argue. I got to see Duke in person when they came out to the West Coast as well, and they just gobble you up defensively. I mean, it's really hard to run anything successfully against that defense. And after a 40-minute game where you're playing 10 different segments, 5 segments per half, it just wears teams down. I saw it happen to Louisville last night. Of course, you saw it happen in the games when they came out and played Stanford and Cal and a bunch of other examples. And a big reason why is, you saw Patrick Ngangba have one of his best games, scoring 15 points, but he's also 6'11", 250 pounds on defense. Malik Brown, 6'9", 225. Dame Sarr, 6'8", only 190, but a freakish leaper that can really, really defend. So they have 3 elite defenders in the front court, and then you have Isaiah Evans on the perimeter, and he can even take the on-ball guard for the other team, and he has velociraptor-type arms. It's just hard to get anything done offensively against this Duke team. So Duke can afford to go cold in games and still extend the lead. It's pretty impressive. And I do believe there's a very high floor for this team. I'm wondering what happens in some of those big matchups. Obviously, we saw them lose by a point to Texas Tech in a late collapse. We saw them almost collapse against Florida at home in a 1-point win. So when they will play the elite teams, they'll play Michigan in the middle of February. That will be fascinating. That's where I want to see how they match up. I think when you play a lot of the ACC, though, they're just going to run into a brick wall with Duke's defensive. It's an elite defense.
Rocco Miller 8 on Twitter is where you should definitely go find him and give him a follow. Opinion time. What do you think should happen with Alabama and any wins that they may earn under Charles Bediako while he's eligible to play, if he's ultimately deemed ineligible? And man, what a wild story, getting a little additional time with Charles with this weather coming through, pushing the court date back, and the judge himself being an Alabama booster. This is just it's a crazy story, right?
It's a crazy story, and I think there's so much more at stake than just if he's eligible or not individually, mainly because you have to rewind to when Charles Bediako was a sophomore, and he did what a lot of underclassmen do in basketball and do what's called declare and forego your eligibility to be in the NBA draft. That's the most important part of this decision. This is why you're seeing the NCAA heavily involved, because if he is successfully able to come back, that would effectively make those rules that the NCAA has been enforcing for as long as we can remember, since they've been in alignment with the NBA on that, it will basically render it unenforceable. And that will mean early entry deadlines will no longer be potentially enforced. If you can't enforce that, guys can hang around forever and then decide to come back to college. And conversely, you could have college players that if that agreement breaks, you could have college players signed mid-season by the pro leagues, which is now today currently not allowed under that same principle. So it's a big difference between what Bediako is going through and what we've seen with some of the other G League players. In all of those examples, those players never forego their eligibility. So that's the big thing. So I think that to me is a ripping the sport apart at the seams scenario if the Bediako approval is to carry forward long term and ruled that the NCAA cannot deny him from playing in this semester, which is basically the premise of it, right? The 5-year clock that they have approved on some of these other guys. It's really different though, because he's the first one that really announced and declared that he's foregoing his eligibility. So from the NCAA's rule book, that means he is no longer allowed to play. And that is being challenged right now. So again, that's going to have long-lasting effects as it pertains to Alabama's long-term future. I think that the fact that they're even trying to go this far to get him shows that they're actually in a little bit of trouble with what they foresee with their roster. As we saw with Baylor went out and got Najee from the G League. They've been pretty bad since they got him. They're well outside of the tournament now. And so I think that's been the interesting thing is fans don't realize that the coaching staffs are going to get these guys because they really need them, and they're trying to solve a big problem. But in the long run, it's going to do a lot. This Bediako thing could do a ton of damage and fundamentally change the way the sport is operated.
Rocco, on Saturday, man, watched a really good one. You did as well, and a lot of college basketball fans saw Texas Tech, man, put it on Houston 90-86, a very close game, a really good game. I asked you about Duke being the best team. I'm going to do the same thing. Convince me otherwise that JT Toppin's not the best player in college basketball.
Well, he's certainly paid like he potentially is. I know they threw an extra $1 million at him just so he wouldn't work out for NBA teams. He was an important asset, and Texas Tech's not low on money, let's be honest. But they have an interesting strategy, the way they play. Jeff Linder runs the offense there. He's the former Wyoming head coach, goes way back with Grant McCaslin, and he is one of a very unique coach. When he coached at Wyoming, they had Hunter Maldonado and Graham Ike, who, of course, is now one of the stars for Gonzaga, and he just loves to force feed the paint. And you saw him do that in this Houston matchup. Toppin took 24 shots in the game. That was not an accident. And they had a deliberate strategy after losing at Houston earlier this year in another close game. And the 1-2 punch of him and Christian Anderson, it's really hard to beat a two-man duo anywhere in college basketball than those two. And they've been able to get a nice boost from freshman Jalen Petty, played tremendous in this game. He's from my hometown of Seattle originally. He was not expected to be that big of a factor this season. He's one of their most important players right now. And the transfer Lawan Watts from Washington State also playing really well most of this year. Didn't have a good game in that one. But Texas Tech, they are figuring out the things they're good at and getting rid of things that they're not as elite at. And that's going to make them really dangerous as the season goes on.
The next three opponents for our Clemson Tigers here, Pitt, they're struggling a little bit, but then they're on the road at Stanford and on the road at Cal. Two really good teams, 14 and 15 win teams respectively. When I'm looking at their matchup predictors, they're given a 68% chance or better to beat both of those teams, even though they're both really good. What is it about Stanford and Cal that you think the computers just don't like against this Clemson team?
Well, I think the computers are so predicated on margin of victory scores. So you've seen Stanford, for example, lose to teams like Notre Dame 47-40. They lost to UNLV at a game I was at, but they're also very capable of beating good teams. I was also at the game when they beat Louisville. I saw them. They've got 4 tournament level wins this year. And the big story at Stanford right now is just announced last week was Chisholm Akpara being out for the year. I think that's a potentially major issue because they run a ton of ball screen pick and roll with their star, Ibuka Okore, the freshman phenom. another tremendous freshman. We have several of them across the country, but now they've really got to use another piece to run that pick and roll action. I think it's going to take them a couple of games to adjust. They're down in Florida this week, so a very far trip for them to play both Florida State and Miami. Sometimes on these cross-country travel trips, the data tells us it's when you get back is when you have your poor performance. So maybe in Clemson's first game of that West Coast trip, they'll be in decent shape against Stanford. But then for Cal's a team growing in confidence. They actually have really improved their outside shooting. They're one of the top three-point shooting teams in the ACC, which is crazy to say because last season they were by far the worst team out of 18. So they addressed their big gaping hole with shooting. I'm not sold on them as a defense fully quite yet, but I was impressed with them being able to go to Stanford and get that win last weekend. And, it's really fun. The fact that we have the ACC on the West Coast now, it's good that we have two teams that are at least flirting with the bubble for now, and they've both got some really good wins. California beat North Carolina. Both teams beat North Carolina, and California's beaten UCLA, and so they've got a chance.
Rocco, you mentioned the bubble there with March looming. I'm going to go ahead and get this out there and ask the question today as we are approaching the end of January with the tournament kicking off in mid-March. When you look at the top 25, I don't know how you feel, but as a college basketball fan, I want to see the best teams, in the tournament, especially late in the tournament, duking it out. I've loved this season. It seems like there are a lot of heavyweights in college basketball, and that excites me for the tournament unless there is a Cinderella that comes along. From what you've seen, who could be that Cinderella that you're keeping an eye on for March?
We'd love to see that. I think that's the growing story right now is just the elites have just gotten even more elite. Right. There's 14 very strong teams. There's 5 bona fide 1 seeds. You can only give 4 1 seeds out. So luckily Michigan plays Nebraska tonight. We're going to start splitting those teams up here soon. But I think when it comes to Cinderella, it depends on how far you want to go. I think if you're comfortable calling St. Louis a Cinderella, well, there you go. This St. Louis team looks extremely dangerous. They've pretty much bulldozed nearly everybody they've played. They've been in a couple close ones. Their one loss is a fluke loss to that Stanford team on a play where they got fouled. They fouled up 3, and the guy makes the first free throw, second free throw misses, and a rainbow kick out for the win. And that's how St. Louis lost their only game. But they have a high major roster. They can really go. They just blew out a decent St. Bonaventure team by 35. They'll play George Washington tonight. I really like the way that team can play, especially against upper competition. We can't wait to see that as long as they can get through. And then if you want a deeper sleeper, I'm going to go see tomorrow night. I'm on my way to the airport soon. I'll be looking at Murray State. They started off 8-0 in the Missouri Valley. Had a bad week last week. They did the Iowa trip and lost both in close games to Drake in Northern Iowa. But I like the makeup of their roster. Similar to St. Louis, just not as ironed on defense quite yet. But Ryan Miller did a great job. Hits his first year on the job. Came over from Creighton. They're running similar offense that you're familiar with in years past from the Blue Jays, and they have a bunch of future pros on that team. I think if Murray State can win Arch Madness, they'll be a tough out.
Rocco, are we going to see any of the traditional mid-majors that only get one bid get a second one this year? Are you looking at any conferences that just have an abundance of power this year that they don't normally have?
I wish, but I think the main hope centers around Miami of Ohio and their 20-0 start so far. They're taking the court tonight against UMass. If Miami, Ohio can get to the finish line with 30 wins and not win the MAC tournament, that would give the MAC two bids. That would probably be your best bet. I mean, even in the American Conference, a conference that's well funded compared to their peers, just no real strong resumes. They've got 5 teams at the top with 2 losses. Nobody with a really good non-conference resume, and Memphis has really fallen apart. So you're probably only seeing 1 team from the American. So unfortunately, in this transfer portal and super conference era, all of the talent, not all of it, but 90-something% of it has bubbled up to the top. When you have like the 9th best player on an SEC team making more money than the best player on some of these teams at this level, it makes it very tough to field a team that could be consistently good to the point where you win 26 to 30 games. And that's why we just ran out of options this year.
Rocco, my last question for you, man. When you look at the SoCon, you mentioned one bid leagues there. The SoCon's interesting this year with some of the predominant powers meddling near the middle of the pack right now. Who stands out to you? What surprised you so far from what you've seen in the SoCon this season?
Yeah, it's been an interesting year. I mean, obviously very disappointing from a non-conference standpoint. I think is the worst performing year they've had in a long time, but so much of that is due to injuries. Chattanooga's been riddled with injuries. Right now, East Tennessee State in first place is 7-1. I think we all knew going into the season they would have the best defense in the league, and that's really held up. It holds up for them time and time again. But their offense is certainly it's decent. It's third best in league play currently. They've had some shaky performances on that end, and you're just not sold who's going to win that SoCon tournament because of that. I think East Tennessee State's still the safest choice because the defense is so solid and it's a great backbone to live off of. But I love the upside of Mercer. I think the two players at Mercer, Baraka Okoji and Armani Mighty, who's had just some amazing performances lately at a 25 rebound game not too long ago. Mercer's super intriguing. I think that'd be a very fun team for the country to see in March Madness. But obviously Wofford's been playing pretty well. They just knocked Mercer off to take second place for today. And Furman, if they can get fully healthy, along with Chattanooga, you can't write those teams off either. Samford as well, sitting there at 3-5, forgotten about for now. They have a lot of talent there. So all of those traditional powers, when it comes SoCon tournament time, don't be shocked if a 5 or a 6 seed wins that whole thing.
Rocco Miller, your knowledge cup runneth over. We appreciate your insights each and every week. Thanks, pal.
My pleasure. Anytime. Look forward to next week.
No load management here. Diesel, Cole Bryson, and the Tolos go the distance on Wire to Wire on the Fan Upstate.
I'm Tony Desiri with your sports.
in the game.
Well, Diesel, 1 year ago today, you and I were on these very airwaves, behind these very microphones. But what did we talk about 1 year ago today? Before I reveal it, would you like to take a guess?
Probably something about Clemson's demise, their slide back to the middle. That'd be my guess, or Super Bowl.
Okay, that is not the second one's not a terrible guess. So, January the 27th, 2025 was show 205 for you and I. And we led the show with the reaction to the Chiefs and the Bills in the AFC Championship game. And guess what we talked about? Josh Allen just not able to get it done against Kansas City, right?
How come he didn't cry after that game the way that he did after their recent loss?
So that was what we led the show with. In the second segment, you, the devil, were talking about how you trained your dog not to eat TV remotes by putting cayenne pepper in the remotes, which is bad, right? You don't do that anymore, do you?
Update, he has eaten a remote since then. So
it didn't work.
No, it didn't work. I tried to train him with some aversion therapy, and the moment I left one, I got better, Cole, about putting it away so that he couldn't have access to it.
That's good.
But the moment I left one out and turned my back on him for like 30 seconds, he crunched it to pieces.
Probably got to the point where he liked the pepper. That's pretty good.
Yeah, aversion therapy doesn't work with this dog.
Yeah, tastes good. Let's see. 1 year ago today on this show, we also were joined by Eric Bakich, the head baseball coach of the Clemson Tigers. We'll have Coach Bakich on in the near future before the season starts. But we talked to Coach Bakich. That was always fun. Let's see. What else 1 year ago today? Oh, we reacted, Diesel, to the Commanders versus the Eagles. Can you believe as bad as Washington was this year? 1 year ago today, we were talking about them in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels, what a different story he was last year. Last year, he was amazing. This year, not so much.
Big difference. We hit our daily wires, of course. We overreacted. What did we overreact about 1 year ago today? Number one, your first overreaction was the referee that was standing behind Josh Allen without a clear view of the football should not be allowed to make that call. Big controversial play, if you remember. You also said it's not Jaden Daniels' fault. He threw the ball 48 times and only got picked once. Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler left him out to dry with some big-time drops, if you remember. My overreaction was Josh Allen should request a trade to the NFC to get away from Patrick Mahomes. Oh, listen to this.
It'd still be a good idea.
It might still be a good idea. This one's funny. Number two overreaction 1 year ago today from me, Diesel, was Sean McDermott should walk away. Should walk away. And 1 year later, Sean McDermott has been fired.
He's been forced to walk away.
Forced to walk away. Here's your walking papers, Mr. McDermott. Also, 1 year ago today on the show, Diesel, we had Paul Maneri on the show. How about that? We had Eric Bakich. Did you realize that? We had Eric Bakich and Paul Maneri on the show on the same day.
Wow.
Same show. Big show.
Wow, what were we doing back then?
I'm telling you.
Bunch of go-getters.
And we're having Paul Maneri on the show tomorrow at 3:22, believe it or not. So stay tuned for that. We also talked about if it was fair or not to judge Josh Allen on just not being able to get it done. So that was 1 year ago today on Wire to Wire, Diesel.
It's amazing how we keep having this conversation about Josh Allen, yet he's the one who's sticking around, and Sean McDermott was the one asked to leave. What?
That's true.
That's true. God. Tolos, appreciate you as always. We'll be back to do it again tomorrow right here on the Fan Upstate and on the stream. Want to see you on the stream tomorrow. What's up, Big Bruiser 5? He says, Cole, you need a beard.
I had one, Big Bruiser 5, but I shaved it all off. It was, a few months
I don't
months
think
ago.
Cole can grow a beard. Like a full beard, like a luscious good beard.
Mine was really long. I looked at a picture last summer from you and I. It was really, really, really big.
He's about to hear it like that.
Tomorrow. See you, Tolos.
From first snap to final whistle.